I call the special October 8th, 2020 at 5:45 p.m. special council meeting to order. Roll call.
McKeever.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Mead.
Here.
Trucca.
Here.
Sheriff.
Here.
Pope. All set.
Here.
We don't have any communications or petitions. Is there any visitors that want to speak? Please come to the podium and state your name and address.
Excuse me, I'm trying to adjust my hearing aids. Seriously. It's okay. What I have been asked to come here tonight to share is a project that I think will kind of make a nice little punch at the beginning of our bicentennial celebration. It comes from the Earth, Wind, and Flowers Garden Club. And our garden club was asked if they would put up $1,000 so that I could purchase 10,000 yellow daffodil bulbs. Now what we plan to do, our garden club, stage A or section A, is attack the city coming in from the east, west, north, and south. And we are going to plan plot areas with little pins in the ground. We'll show where we'll be digging holes, and you don't need to pay attention to us. We have permission for the city lawn, the tree lawn part. We have clearance on that. But we're going to come in until we hit the heart of the city. And then phase B takes over, which is involving the public, getting them involved with their shovels. Let me tell you about how that works quickly. Our team members, some of them are here tonight. I want to tell you about Susan Moreau and her husband, Mike Cow. And they, because they walk often in Allmiller, decided they would take on Allmiller Park, and they're going to plot all the different places. We're going to put 1,200 daffodil bulbs out there in clumps. So that in April, this will be a show-off spot all through that people travel around the park. Anyway, we are also going to hit the city parks internally, but I'm going to back up one more time and say that our garden club members have agreed to come in from the north, south, east, and west. I said that. But we are giving them a certain measure of bulbs, and I'm holding some back in reserve because many people are saying, ooh, you could put some down in the Historical Society lawn, maybe the train station tree lawn, and we're coming up with other placements that would tie into this bicentennial. So let me tell you about phase B. Phase B is going to happen on the morning of November 7th at Shines Park, where we are asking the community, and I will use my column that I write to let people know about the details here and what they need to do. I'm going to bring a chart for them each to take off, and what they'll do is take a piece of cardboard with their park name stapled to it. They're going to be given a big box of whatever we've counted out for them, bulb-wise to plant, and they will go to that park site and they will bomb that park, because we're calling this Bomb Bucyrus with bulbs. And I forgot to tell you that most important thing first. That's our thought, and I think it'll fly well. We already have our sponsors in place, and there'll be more news coming out about this weekend. I know Crawford County now has already leaked all the secrets, but our sponsors, in addition to our own garden club, are Pickle Place, Ford's Livestock, Diamond Wipes, the Rotary Club of Bucyrus, the Bucyrus Kiwanis Club, and the Munns Hernstel Funeral Home. So we have some good, strong sponsors who believe that this will be a brightening spot. And I'm going to tell you why we chose daffodils, and then I think I'll let you go on to your next piece of business. We chose daffodils because daffodils naturalize. I know that tulips would have brought more color, but I know that our daffodils will make more of themselves over the years. And it won't matter because they're going to bloom in April. Maintenance people are going to come through in May and go, just mow them off. We don't care. Our garden club has almost no maintenance whatsoever, getting the community and ourselves to install them. And deer do not eat daffodils. They like tulips. We have 4 good reasons for choosing this way of sharing with you the brightness of springtime. So we aren't asking for anything from you, but watch my column, and if you can come down there with a shovel at 10 o'clock in the morning on November 7th, you just come right on down there. I know the mayor said he's gonna dig as many holes as it takes, and that would be nice. If few of you can, we will have our own workforce, which is gonna be the community, hopefully, and our own team in Stage A, which is the approaches to the city, because we want to make that warm and fuzzy too. And I think that's all I need to say. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you for what you do.
Sorry for being late.
That's okay. Is there any other visitors who want to speak at the special meeting? Hearing no more. Consideration of legislation for the first time.
Yes, we have two resolutions. Resolution number 232, 2020, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Bucyrus or his designee to solicit bids and enter into a contract or contracts in an amount not to exceed $19,800 for repairs of sanitary sewer, specifically the juncture of phases 1 and 2 of the former villas of Whetstone development and stormwater drain issues in phase 3 of the former villas of Whetstone development, and declaring an emergency. That's referred to the planning committee. Resolution number 233, 2020, providing for the acceptance by the city of Bucyrus for future maintenance of the streets, curbs and gutters, water lines, and sewer lines, both sanitary and stormwater, as constructed and installed at the villas at Whetstone Phase 2 and 3 allotment, as approved by the Ohio EPA and city engineer, and declaring an emergency. That's also referred to the planning committee.
Need a motion to accept as the first reading.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Those are referred back to the originating committee. Public participation. Any member of the general public may present their input or comments on legislation that's been read for the first time. If anybody wants to speak on that legislation, please come to the podium. Hearing none. Committee report on pending legislation. Plating committee, Mr. McKeever.
Yes, planning committee is favorable to resolution 232-2020, the sewer repair contract, and plating is favorable to resolution 233-2020 for the infrastructure acceptance.
Need a motion to accept that report.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Further consideration of pending legislation for the second and third reading of proposed resolution 232-2020. Do I hear a motion to suspend the rules, waive the reading of the caption and text, and declare it an emergency?
So moved.
Second.
McKeever,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Me,
Yes.
Trucca,
Yes.
Sherrick,
Yes.
Vogt,
Yes.
Allset.
Yes.
Resolution number 232, 2020.
Do I hear a motion to adopt proposed resolution 232-2020?
So moved. Second.
Myers,
Yes.
Me,
Yes.
Trucca,
Yes.
Sherrick,
Yes.
Vogt,
Yes.
Allset.
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Resolution number 232-2020 is duly adopted. For the second and third reading of proposed resolution 233-2020, do I hear a motion to suspend the rules, waive the reading of the caption and text, and declare it an emergency?
So moved. Second.
Vogt,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Me,
Yes.
Trucca,
Yes.
Sherrick,
Yes.
Allset.
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
resolution number 233, 2020.
Do I hear a motion to adopt proposed resolution 233-2020?
So moved. Second.
Vogt,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Me,
Yes.
Trucca,
Yes.
Sherrick,
Yes.
Allset.
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Resolution number 233-2020 is duly adopted. Nobody's absent. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned at 5:55 PM.
Here we go.
You know the first one on
It's time.
Well, thank you.
601.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call the Bucyrus City Council joint regular committee meeting to order at 6:01 PM, October 8th. Members present are Jimmy Meade, Kevin Myers, Mark McKeever, C. Aaron Sherrick, Lisa Allsett, and myself. I don't know, public participation, is there anyone besides these two for public participation out there? No? I'm gonna hold you until later, if you don't mind. Okay, Service Committee, approval of the September 17th, 2020 minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'm just calling your attention to these are the minutes from 9/17. There are two requested amendments. One is on item number 1, it started to the left, and one is on item number 2, it started to the left, and then there's a verbatim transcript on the second page that relates to that. Since we changed the council rules on September 1, committee minutes are now being approved by the committees on the joint regular committee meeting day, which is today. And so if you move to approve, I would first consider these two amendments.
Number 1 on page 1 of 2, it says that the committee, and I'll have it read. I'll just go ahead and read it out loud, and that way everybody kind of understands what's going on. It says water line expansion for the village of Nevada. The Wyandotte County Village of Nevada is facing a decision about whether to build a new water plant or have water extended to it from the city. McKeever and Associates has been working with Rural Community Assistance Program to coordinate various sources of financial assistance for a water line extension to Nevada. Council has voted in support of the administration's pursuit of the extension. In a letter dated September 11, 2020, the Village of Nevada agreed to move forward with the extension under a variety of conditions, including that the city would bill water usage based on its rates inside the city and not deviate from its current water rate structure. Mayor Jeff Reeser noted that this would be similar to the water agreement the city has with the Village of North Robinson. Reeser was asked what the extra revenue from the water line expansion in Nevada would be used for, and he replied, and then this is an amendment requested on 10/5/2020 by C.A. Sherrick. What would be crossed out is that, well, I don't know how to word it. It did state that it would go into the water department budget for line maintenance. It says Reeser was asked what the extra revenue from the water line expansion in Nevada would be used for, and he replied that it would go into the water department budget for line maintenance and other expenses. Okay, this line was asked to be deleted, and what was requested would be that it would go into the water department budget, which is worth about $4 million, but not presently up to that amount. That would be the...
You said that we still went up to operating. We have to go into that because we still went up to the operating budget. So that's approximately what it was changed to.
Was the committee happy with that? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have to have individuals?
Just a motion and a second, and then a vote to amend.
On each amendment?
You can do each or both at the same time. It'd probably be better to do each one individually.
All right. I need a motion to accept this first amendment.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Okay. The next order is Bucyrus Codified Ordinance, Chapter 915, Water Charges, Regulations, and Meters. The committee has been exploring what options may be available when a landlord's tenant skips out on paying a water bill, which under current city law leaves the landlord responsible for paying. The Ohio Revised Code gives municipalities permission to require unpaid water bills to be paid by the property owner, a function that doesn't exist with other utility bills. It was noted that the credit checks and utility checks could be utilized to determine deposit amounts for new tenants. Law Director Rob Ratliff noted that the amendment, which was requested on 10/5/2020, let's see, how do I do this again?
Mr. Chair, I can probably.
Yeah, but
The sentence that read previously, it was Law Director Rob Ratliff noted that council members who are also landlords are free to vote on legislation pertaining to this issue without it constituting a conflict of interest, provided it is a citywide change and not for the direct benefit of those council members. At the meeting on Monday, the Law Director requested he stated that that's not what he said, and I suggested that I would attach a verbatim transcript of what he did say, which is on page 2. And I'll read that verbatim transcript. This is a direct quote from the Law Director. "It's not a conflict of interest unless you're voting on something that directly benefits you. If it's something that's a citywide issue, it may not be a conflict," end quote. Then James Mee said, direct quote, "I called the state and they said as long as I didn't influence the price of a property to increase or decrease it, I was totally legal on discussing and voting," end quote. And then the Law Director again, quote, "I'd have to see whatever the opinion was, but in general, it's not a conflict of interest if it's something ubiquitous that's citywide, if it's a citywide program, or it may still be a conflict if it relates to a specific pecuniary gain to the renter. It's transferring to the liability to the taxpayers, and I'll leave that to your judgment. Ultimately, that's the question." So as far as amending this, I can stick in the verbatim transcript as I just read, or I can paraphrase it, or we could do nothing. It's up to the committee.
I would say the verbatim transcript, just to be on the up and up, so that it's
I agree with her.
not someone else's opinion.
Okay, so I need a motion.
Motion to accept the verbatim transcript as the change. As amended.
I have to do it. A motion to accept the verbatim transcript as the change in the minutes.
I second it.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
And then you need to approve of it.
And now, I need a motion and a second to.
I'll move to approve as amended.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes by majority. Okay. Stop getting all over, I lost my train of thought. Okay, next order of business would be, Mr. Mayor.
2021 OPWC grant,
Correct.
we'll turn that over to Mr. McKee. Right?
The grant that we're applying for is going to be for water lines within the city. There is insufficient time to prepare, get plans approved, and have where Joyce can say that the money is in place or in the process of being collected. The timing will not work for the Nevada water line at this time. It's being discussed, and also we can't have an agreement with Nevada until council decides on what the rate structure will be with Nevada, because otherwise we don't have an agreement to do the line. So what we're doing is we're going to go back to our previous project of Warren Street from Highland to Whetstone. We did a section of that 2 years ago, and we're going to complete that project this year, replacing a 12-inch cast iron line with a new 12-inch PVC line. And then we're also looking, we feel that's going to be insufficient monies to utilize the maximum amount of grant that you have available. And we're going to look, you have a water line underneath the Mary Street Bridge that we're also going to look at to supplement that. And we're discussed those last Friday and Tuesday of this week. And so I don't have paperwork for you to see, and that will be put together over the weekend. So that was what we're proposing for your OPWC money. Typically, you've been getting $185,000 plus or minus from OPWC that we apply for with the, in grants, and they say there's no guarantees, and there isn't in the world. One person could take all the money if he had enough points to score that way. Several years ago, there were 3 projects out of 6 or 7 counties that got funded. But it's been working out, averaging in that $185,000 grant section for you. And we anticipate virtually no change this coming year with that. But we won't know until the district votes in November on that, when the money is actually going to be there, and then it goes to Columbus and gets approved. But the projects that we want to submit for are the Warren Street water line replacement, and look at the Mary Street water line at the bridge at Mary Street under the Sandusky River. It broke and is shut off. So.
Okay. I got a question real quick. What bearing will that have with the Mary Street underpinnings that was supposed to be in the works?
You mean with the bridge repairs?
Yeah, they said that the underpinnings.
We're looking at that, and I'm going to tell you nothing, because
Okay.
we're actually looking at going back underground off to the side, so we won't have to hang on the bridge. But that's my due diligence that I have to work on this weekend. But I'm saying it's off to the side to repair it.
Kevin?
So 2 questions I have. Number 1, what do you need from this committee right now in pertaining to the OPWC grant? And then number 2, what does that mean for the Nevada project? How will we accomplish that? And what do you need from us to get that started as well?
Okay. Your project, we just need I'm not sure, never sure whether it's a resolution or an ordinance. Rob, or Wes.
It's rubber joints, how they usually do that.
Yeah.
They typically a resolution.
Well, from her, it's just a letter.
Yeah.
It's from the city has an
I believe
ordinance or
it's
a resolution that we typically do to authorize the mayor or service safety director, I probably should say, to submit the application.
Cool.
And then Joyce would
But-
say how it's going to be funded.
But we already agreed that that would be fine. We couldn't go any further on deciding prices, and we couldn't go any further on anything else, because we knew
We're talking
exactly
about
how much.
OPWC right now.
No, but
Well, they still don't have the signed engineer's estimate.
Right.
You know you're gonna get about $185,000 grant. I hate saying that, you know, but that's what typically happens. And you usually use about a 50-50 match. So you're gonna have around a $370,000 project with a 50-50 match.
So what
And
happens?
the exact numbers will be determined. And the true exact, I have to submit an signed engineer's estimate. It'll be somewhere in that area.
And that's just on the Warren Street project.
Warren,
Mary.
Water Street and the Mary.
And Mary.
And
yeah.
if we aren't granted that, then what happens?
Pardon me?
If we don't receive that grant?
Then it dies.
Okay, okay. I just
Yeah,
wanna make sure
we don't do
we're
anything
covering
without
somewhere
getting
else.
the grant, but Joyce is required by law to certify that the money is in place or in the process of being collected for your share.
Okay.
And she just, and she's waiting on my number also, but it's gonna be in that $185,000 that the city puts in out of your water fund, and then the balance being funded by OPWC.
Okay, and then as far as the Nevada project goes.
Nevada water line, we cannot submit the applications for funding until council decides on what the rate structure is going to be. Nevada requested the same in town as out of town. Until that resolution or ordinance is passed, we have no agreement. And the same thing happens there. They can't hire the engineering without having the agreement. Joyce can't sign for her side of how we're gonna fund this. Nevada can't sign for theirs. But until Nevada knows what their rate structure is, you have no agreement. We have an understanding, people are in favor of it. We want to proceed ahead, I assume, but it starts with your piece of paper first.
Well,
Oh, we already voted on it as a committee, and then we were told to hold up.
You voted on what?
We voted on, as a committee, as a majority of us in the committee, we voted to go ahead and do Nevada water line at in-city water rates.
As long as we had the funding.
I don't have it.
Well,
So
we didn't
don't
change
have
any
it.
legislation, no.
No,
for-
but
He told us we didn't go any further until we knew whether or not we were getting the funding. We could, and we can't really actually fully decide if we're not getting the funding as to,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
There's some moving parts here that we're still working on. I'm asking Mr. McKeever, what would be the ideal time that Nevada would need this by?
Now,
unless
you're voting, they don't have a piece of paper stating that you guys are willing to do that.
because you said we couldn't go that far until we knew whether or not we were getting the funding. So we stopped
Well,
it at that point in time.
the restriction now on getting the funding is to have the plans approved by the EPA. Okay. One of the funding agencies no longer says, yes, you can have the money in advance. They had too many projects that people said, yeah, let's go for it. And they sent in the applications, they were funded, and then the plans were prepared, and then the local entities couldn't, let's say the budget changed and there was insufficient funds. So now we have to have EPA approval for the CDBG portion of this.
Mr. Chair?
yes.
Lynn, do you need, well, for the funding, do you need the city to go ahead and change its ordinance? Or would you need just maybe a resolution where the city says we will change our ordinance contingent on the funding? Or is that something you're gonna say you should ask for?
I'm not qualified for that one, Rob. I'm gonna refer that one back to you.
I was afraid of that. Okay.
But I know I was in a meeting with them, and they have not received anything from council stating, here's a copy of the ordinance saying, or a resolution, or whatever you need to legally do to tell them, and then they'll know how to go forward.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we don't have that because you told us, no, stop, wait.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, we can
so that's where that lies.
Okay.
But then my next question is,
Yeah, we can do that.
how
but
can we
the-
guarantee
the
now that
means
we
we're
would
changing
stay
it,
at
though,
the
when
same
it's-
rate as the
it's
city?
changed.
If now it costs us money
Yeah,
because
which
we're
fixture
not getting the
would
money
change
to
it back? Well,
cover it?
Yeah.
Because now we're out.
All
even more.
you're saying is that when they start buying water, if they buy water, they're gonna pay the same rate for water as I do.
So what happens if we can't afford that because we ended up having to foot the bill for this water line because we didn't get full grant funding as you said was supposed to happen? Because
Well,
now we
I'm
don't
not
have
the
it.
grant seeker, let me get that straight, okay? But, well, Mayor, you wanna?
Yeah, well, to answer your question, Eric, yeah, it's gonna have to be a good financial deal. We're not, we know how much revenue we're gonna get, and it's gonna have to make sense. When that final package is put together, if we're gonna lose money on it, we're not gonna go forward with it.
You do not have to.
Well, we're being told right now, we have to say it
Yeah,
has
'cause
to
the
be
line
at
ain't
such
gonna
and
get
such
built
right now.
until 2022.
Well, they're not interested in that
Not
if it isn't that way. They'll go some other way. They'll work on their plan, they'll put their new tower up. That's what's gonna happen there, so.
Mr. Chair, Lynn, and I guess it's probably something we'll have to ask the funding body, but would it be an option perhaps if the city passed an ordinance that change in our rates went into effect 1/1 of '22, because this construction is going to take place in '22, right? So if
Yes,
we,
it
so,
will be before that.
so, and then
What?
if funding didn't come, then maybe there would be time to repeal.
We never have to, you can put in there, subject to acceptable funding in your approval. You know, I assume you got a way to do that, so that they know if the project goes forward, that's gonna be, and with the projected funding limits, or however you wanna word that, to cover what you're concerned about, and that's fine, because if we don't have that, Joyce, her letter is gonna, I mean, she's gonna back out, we're gonna have to kill the project if we don't get the funding, or we have to come back and ask for additional consideration.
Well, but we don't need legislation to accept the funding and do the project. The first thing we need is legislation on changing our water rates for in-town and out-of-town, right? Before we do
For
anything.
Nevada.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't think, what I would rather see is a specific resolution to Nevada only.
Right.
Because what that does is ties us up to all the other moving parts that we have on Stetzer Road and North Robinson and, up to Winford, all those different, that locks us in there. We're not quite ready to put a date on that right now for those. So if the resolution was specific just to Nevada, that when the water is turned on to Nevada, that's the rate, whatever that date would be. That would be.
So you just need a
one-to-one rate.
guarantee of rate on Nevada?
They want to make sure that they're not going to pay double or triple or 25% more. That's all they were saying,
When and if
if the
We
line
are
gets
able.
built. Yeah.
to supply them water, we would supply it at X amount of dollars. I'm
Okay,
with
go ahead.
That's kind of where I was going. with
And if
what
you want to
Mayor
say
said.
just Nevada at this time, that's fine, that's all we're interested in.
I would be comfortable with,
funding.
I would be comfortable with a resolution stating that we would agree to sell water to the village of Nevada at the current in-town bulk rate.
At that time.
At the same rate,
Okay,
don't say current, because if you
Yeah,
come
'cause
back
they're
and
gonna
change
higher
yours,
rates up.
I got you. They wanted the current structure.
they
So-
want to make sure that if we pay per
At the
gallon
same rate as
ourselves
the
is what
city.
they pay per gallon.
The in-town
The
rate,
in-town
In-town rate.
bulk
that's all they
And you'll
want.
have your tiered rate structure that you got in town, that's what they would pay.
No. Just at the same in-town rate as the city of Bucyrus.
Yes.
Yes.
That's it.
When you say.
I thought we said in-town bulk rate.
Huh?
I thought we said
With
in-town
the same
bulk rate.
structure.
It's in-town bulk rate.
You don't have to say bulk though, because when their service is active, they'll be using so much water that it will land in the
Yeah.
bulk category.
It'll go in the tiered,
Yeah, it's-
it'll roll over as
Stated
they
that
use
way.
more.
Should, in my opinion, should be worded in-town rate and structure. So it takes away, like what you're talking about, the bulk rate.
That's fine.
So-
All right, Steve.
You want me to put all that into words again?
Yes.
I would,
Somebody wrote it down.
I would request a resolution agreeing to the sale of water. I'll get to that. Agreeing to the sale of water to the village of Nevada at the in-town rate as an emergency
And
resolution.
structure.
And structure.
Yeah, rate and structure as an emergency resolution. It takes a village.
Second.
Okay, we got Bruce got a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. And then I'll sign a piece of paper and get it to Rob, and we'll have something going right away then. At least by next council meeting? Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So do we need to do anything with the 2021 OPWC grant tonight?
Could you,
Yeah.
I don't, well.
That's what I didn't
We
understand.
did that
Because he
go.
doesn't have anything ready yet.
He doesn't have
He's
anything ready.
waiting.
Okay,
You
what's
know,
on
it's
the
the only
agenda?
thing-
You had it on the agenda just to inform us. No.
We're gonna need it as an emergency at your next meeting.
Well, then let's,
So you need what we typically
We'll
do
need
is.
a resolution for the safety service director to apply for the OPWC loans for the water line improvements
Mhm.
and
For 2020.
for the next fiscal year. Be pretty much the same ordinance that you passed the last several years, just changing the dates. And you know where it's going. It's gonna be in the water line. It's not a street project, it's not a sewer project, it's water. And it's gonna complete the one we started 2 years ago. And we
So-
know that we won't use up all the available money, so we've been talking with Mr. Ernsberger about that, and one that's critical to him is getting the water line reconnected underneath the Mary Street Bridge. So we'll be dealing with that and calling.
So we could request draft legislation for that tonight?
Yes.
All right, I'd move to request draft legislation authorizing the service director and the auditor to work on the 2021 OPWC grant.
Got a second on all that?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. That'll be another piece then we'll have for next council meeting. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'm
Yes,
just
sir.
confused. You said draft legislation. In that case, it wouldn't be for the next council meeting, it'd be for the next committee meeting. Is that correct?
No, they're gonna need it.
Because you said draft legislation.
Well, and if that's the case, we could call a service committee meeting right prior to review it
Okay.
and move it forward. I mean, it's gonna be boilerplate from what it was last year's, but unless there's a different way to do it, but I mean, that's,
So you just want to request legislation, not draft legislation?
I can, yeah, so I can change my motion to take out the word draft, just requesting legislation
As amended.
as an emergency.
Second.
Okay, so he's changing, he's amending it, you're seconding it, the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes as amended.
Thank you.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Commercial water meters.
I can address that.
Yes.
We have through the CARES Act, we've been given another sum of money. One of our ideas, which I think is a good idea, is to replace our existing commercial water meters, many of which are 15 to 20 years old. I was informed by the meter maker that they lose their reliability so much per year after each year. And the ones that are 20 years old may only be about 75 or 80% reliable. There's new meters out. We met with the representative who does our meters right now, Badger, and made a presentation on them. And these are cellular meters that the business owner, commercial business owner can actually have an app that can see their water usage at any time and know if there's any kind of an issue on it. From the city's point of view, there are meters that are going to last another 15 to 20 years. And now that we have these funds available, we would like you to strongly consider allowing us to go out to bid to replace the commercial water meters as part of the CARES Act. The estimated cost of all the meters of commercial would be around $200,000. And this would not be borne obviously by the local businesses or by the taxpayers and utility users here. The only thing is, we do need, we are under a time frame for the CARES Act money. We need to have these meters in a house by the end of the year. So, we would need to go out to bid, advertise, go out to bid, award the bid, and get them ordered. So we're kind of under a quick time frame so we can get rolling on it, because we're only about roughly 2.5 months from the end of the year. So.
I know, being on service for a while, that this has always been an ongoing concern of all of us, that we were worried about how we were going to replace all these commercial water meters in all the different area companies and factories, and so, I mean.
This is a perfect opportunity, because
Yes.
the reason it applies for a CARES Act is because, we don't have to then go in and read these meters. It could be done.
I was just gonna bring up what you were saying.
Okay.
That these would be radio reads, so that our employees don't have to go in nursing homes physically to read meters like they do now. And it would be safer for the nursing home and for the employees.
Prior to going on vacation, I had asked if there was anything we could do for small businesses.
Yes.
Have we looked into that?
Yes, we certainly have. What we're going to do is, after we purchase the things that we are doing for the city, we are gonna have some funds left over. And we are in favor of some type of a grant program for small businesses. We can also distribute money to people in need for food, soup kitchens,
Food
backpack
banks, things like
programs,
that.
Salvation Army. So what our goal is this, as soon as we can see where we're going with this and what we've spent so far for the touch-free renovations here at the pool, we want to see what we have left and what we've been awarded, and then get back with the county auditor to see what has been turned back in from the townships or any of the cities. We want to make sure that none of this money gets sent back to the state. And so then we want to distribute it, as soon as we find out a number, then get it to small businesses, some type of a grant program, as well as the people in need. We can also distribute it to school system, senior citizen center for COVID related things too. I've already been in contact with the city schools about such a project too, so.
Because I've been to a few area businesses that I've not been to since the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And, even Baker's, for instance,
Yeah.
was, used to be the most packed place in town, and there was next to nobody in there, and, I mean, our small businesses have been hit pretty hard, and
You sure?
I'd like to see some of them get some assistance with things.
That's rough. I know, with the PPP loans, that's what a lot of people are basically living on. And, until we get through coronavirus, either with herd immunity, or some type of a vaccine, we're gonna be struggling. Anybody that's, hotels, I know our bed tax is down substantially this year. And then obviously the restaurants are an issue too, so, and any small business, so we want to help them out. We are going to have a plan. It's just a matter of how we're going to administer it. There's a possibility of having a sub-grantee. Joyce and I were talking about that today. And then have them monitor the program and distribute the funds. And so it's just a matter of how we're going to do that. Plus, and we'll come back with you with the amounts in the program when that's all done. So.
Kurt?
I want to agree with what Lisa just said. I know a lot of small business owners that are hurting, and some of them are in a situation that you may not even need your commercial meter to go put in there because they might not be in business.
Yep. IP tech's closing, places are closing.
BPT, no.
BPT, sorry,
Not
that's- I didn't mean that. They're right next to each other. I always get confused. Yeah,
And some are doing extremely well, and we're very fortunate here, because if you look all for, help wanted signs that are out right now, so it's kind of it's just a crazy time. Some people are just booming.
well, I think people that are servicing, people, like as far as fast food, hairdressers, salons, things like that do a personal service like that, they're struggling. More so maybe than
Sure.
other
So
businesses.
we're working on it right now, so we'll have something, and that'll all be done by the end of the year. All that money will be out.
So at this point, you just need a resolution to authorize you to seek bids.
Yes, for commercial water meters.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
We're gonna need an emergency.
As an emergency.
Don't need an emergency.
I have to amend it, yeah. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, well, it's majority. All right, I'm gonna shift gears and allow public participation at this point in time. If you guys would like to come to the podium and speak, or
I'm Bob Irwin, landlord and resident. I wanted to talk a little bit about the water bill being charged to the landlord. One thing I wanted to make really clear, and I think you guys discussed it, but I didn't quite hear it real well. When you vote on this, one way or the other, on this particular bill, is everybody on the committee allowed to vote if they are a landlord? Rob, is that right?
I have provided them with guidance, and they'll each make that determination.
Yeah, but guidance, I want to know myself. Can I be told? I want to know if they feel, if somebody on the committee feels that they're getting themselves into an ethical problem if they vote for it when they're a landlord, so they choose to vote against it, they need to know that very clear. And I think,
Well, but if the individual determines that they have a conflict, they wouldn't vote for or against either one. They would simply abstain.
I'm not what I'm saying.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit. I'm saying there's several of these people that are landlords, okay? Now, they're gonna be voting on legislation saying that we're not gonna charge the landlords anymore for water owed by a tenant, by a different person. They're either gonna vote to remove that and get rid of it forever, or they're gonna vote to leave it the way it is.
Or they may not vote at all.
Let's say technically,
They may abstain.
Well, okay.
but technically, as he said before, we could do something now, and the next group that comes in can do something to change it, so it wouldn't be forever.
All these can be revisited by any council at any time, unfortunately.
The problem is, yeah, they can abstain. That's the same as voting no. And the reason they would
No.
abstain,
No,
It's not the
Yes.
same,
no, it isn't.
not at all.
It's just not putting a vote in.
So if we have, there's 7 of us, and you're referring to possible 2 members, as long as the 5 of us vote, it still would,
There's 4 of us.
How,
well, 4, well, then there's only 3 of us voting. If you feel,
the problem, here's the problem. The problem is, if they feel that they need to abstain from voting, that's because they're afraid of an ethical thing.
or that there is one.
Rob can tell them that there's no ethical thing. I mean, if it's for all landlords, it's not one landlord is gonna be treated any different than the other, it's for all of them.
go ahead.
How many landlords do we have in the city of Bucyrus, that live in the city of Bucyrus?
Well, I have no idea.
A lot. I don't know.
Well, they would actually live in Crawford County, am I correct? Because
Well, yeah,
if their property that they're renting is in Bucyrus and
which means like, I know at least one landlord that lives in Columbus,
Well, and
it's on the taxes
and
of the property.
there's a couple out in California,
They're renting.
Yeah.
so that's why I was wondering.
one of probably our biggest landlord lives in Huron County. So, yeah, how many landlords live in, I don't know, there's, I think 3,200 residences, I think, give or take, houses, apartments, total.
We have 5,500.
5,500.
5,500
Okay.
rents.
But whether they live in town or not has nothing to do with this vote.
Goes on the tax.
It's all about holding somebody responsible for a bill that someone else has. And I don't want anybody on the committee or the council to think that they can't vote to relieve that off of the landlord's back because they might think there's something ethical in there. That should be really clear somehow. I mean, you know, if you're the law director, you should be able to, you understand that code,
Yes.
what that says. You should be able to tell all of us right now that there's nobody here that's gonna be different than any other landlord. That they can vote, they don't have to abstain from vote. They can vote yes, or they can vote no.
Or they can abstain. And I have provided to the council members my opinion, my my legal opinion on that matter.
Can you give me that legal opinion?
I've provided that to the council members.
But can you do it to me? You can't do it to me?
I've provided them an attorney opinion, so they have advice from me as their
I
attorney.
know you have.
Right,
And I don't know what it is, but
correct.
I'm curious myself. You're the law director for the
Right, and
people.
I have an attorney-client obligation to them to provide them with guidance in my legal opinion.
Why don't you to me?
Because in this case, they're the client. So I've provided them an opinion as to what my recommendation is. They can follow my recommendation, they can seek a different recommendation, they can seek an opinion from the state, they can, whatever they want to do. I'm not prohibiting anybody from doing anything.
I don't know. I don't like that. No.
I just want
Didn't we just read?
to clarify something. Are the elected officials able to go to the Ethics Commission and ask the
Yes.
Ethics Commission and get?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Could I, Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
can
go
I,
ahead.
to that point though, I think it would be better if we went collectively as a group rather than individually, because we're gonna get an answer quicker if we go, and that was part of what I was to bring up tonight, was we do have, the opinion from our legal counsel. My question, and I don't know if you had a chance to research it or find it, if 2 of the 4 members on the committee abstain, can the remaining 2 members cast a vote?
Yeah, and you asked me right before the meeting, so I had to do what research I could, phone-wise and Robert's rules-wise. And the few minutes research I had on that is the Robert's rules would indicate that if members of a body recuse themselves, it changes the number for the majority of the body. For example, if there's 7 members on a body and 3 or 2, whatever it is, decide to recuse themselves, it now becomes a 4-member body, and those 4 would vote, and then the
Still just
majority would
needing
be.
a simple majority to pass.
Yeah,
So-
you would run afoul of state law for emergency purposes. You wouldn't have the required number because it doesn't.
But for regular, it would work.
Yeah, you would only take 3 out of the 4.
How does that affect let's just say a veto situation?
I don't know. I haven't had a chance to research that. Because a veto, my recollection, I have to look at it, but I think it's 3/4 of the body, and it may change the body.
So it could recalculate the number then on,
We would definitely have to do
to
some.
override the veto.
We'd have to definitely look into that. I wouldn't know. I don't know offhand.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure you should even be voting tonight. I mean, I'm not sure the vote doesn't need to take place sometime. There's a lot of other things that need to be considered here. Number one, like, and Bob and Gary, I don't know if you were landlords when this ordinance was passed earlier, maybe 15, 20 years ago. What the whole thing, was there objection to it then? What was the idea, what was city council's idea at that time to put the burden on the landlords? And the other thing too, now that it's been in place that long, there's, Mike Cal gave this information. There's been over $220,000 assessed on tax rolls since 2015, and about $200,000 collected. This year, I think about 45,000. We were talking earlier today, about 45,000 was, and that doesn't even include the money that landlords came in and paid personally. This is just what was assessed. So, yeah, if you put this back on the city, which, maybe agreed to or whatever, there's gonna be some cost to the citizens of Bucyrus. So we figure, could be 100,000 a year by the time we talk about filings, advertising, collections. So what the city is gonna have to do is find that money from somewhere. So we're gonna have to raise, I just want council to know, we're gonna have to raise the rates.
You always say that.
Okay,
That's your go-to.
I have two
Where
questions.
are we gonna come up, where
Wait,
I don't know from the
where are you
Nevada.
gonna come up with $100,000?
I have two
You tell me
questions.
where.
If I have to, I guess I will.
What?
Mr. Reeser, I have two questions. One, is there any way to change the way it currently is
Yes, that's what I'm getting.
so that, okay, fine, if the landlord has to cover this bill, it doesn't get erased off this jerk over here. And before this person who refused to pay their bill to begin with wants another water bill, they have to pay that money, which goes back to the landlord?
Say it again, okay. Say it-
Look,
so-
okay, right now it's supposedly joint, but the landlord didn't use the money,
Right.
the renter did. Is there a way to write it up such that, fine, it goes against the property because that's where the pipes are? And if anything happens to the water line, that's who, you know. But this person is still liable for it. So you make note, the landlord came in because his next renter wants to be able to have water, and you guys have said no. So he pays it, but this person over here, this person who chose not to pay,
I understand.
is not allowed to get another water bill until they pay that. And when it's finally paid, that money goes back to whatever, whether it's their.
It could be, I didn't make the ordinance in 2005.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but is there a way to do it that way?
I'm looking at it from.
Or do we look at it,
I'm just looking, is there another solution? Is
or
there a
do we look at
solution
it like the
that?
other cities do?
Maybe, so Bob, maybe it isn't a vote to worry about ethics. Maybe we could sit down and say, like Aaron said, maybe there's a solution. Maybe we can do something like that. Maybe we still have the same amount of security deposit that we had when our rates were a lot lower. Maybe it's a matter of us raising our security deposit. Maybe it's a matter of you raising your security deposit. Maybe it's a matter of us doing credit checks. So maybe we can come to some agreement between the city and the landlord, so we don't have to, so we can put the burden on who it should be put on, like Aaron's saying, not you or not the city. So maybe, I'm just suggesting, rather than vote tonight, let's see if we can come to some agreement that is a compromise for everybody, so we don't have to raise the rates. We don't wanna raise the rates, but when we lose $100,000, it's gotta come from somewhere. And
Okay, now the next question is, and I said this the last time, every city I've lived in other than this, when I've gone to school and whatever, and had to have my own apartment for my schooling, my rent was my water was a part of my rent because it never was allowed to leave the owner of the land's name.
Okay, so are you
As-
in favor of that?
As a part of that,
We have to ask the landlords, are they in favor of that?
but as a part of that, if I didn't pay my rent, they could go to the city and have my water shut off, just like the city can have it shut off for not payment, for not paying.
We can't do that.
They would
But-
never allow us to do that.
But that's what I'm saying, can we make that be a
Why
thing?
can't you do that?
No, because that is something that we never let them
City
do.
wouldn't allow, okay.
No.
Okay, city wouldn't.
So we would
Well-
have to have an ordinance to say that it would happen.
I think in that particular situation, and I don't know the particulars you're referring to, but my read of state law now is that landlords would face a lot of liability if they terminated water service during, or to help, or to
So
force an eviction.
What is it, no, what is it now when people don't pay their water bill? It's not to force an eviction at that point, it is non-payment of bill. Because the utility is written right in there, and it's part of the lease agreement.
If that's part of the lease agreement,
Yeah,
yes,
that's what I'm saying.
that's a separate situation, yes.
They make it a part of the lease agreement because it has to remain in their name. And it says, this much of your water bill goes towards. And if your bill increases by, I think it's like $20 to $50 for 2 months in a row, you pay that excess and it's added on to your next
Yeah.
rental.
I would say that we do have a couple of landlords who have, I've seen leases written on the backs of napkins.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
So, but yeah, no,
Me
if
too.
it's part of the lease agreement that
I mean, well, if-
that they're paying the landlord, and the landlord, in that
It's
situation, the
just
landlord
figuring
steps
out
into the
how
role of the city
isn't
and
getting
turns off the
messed
water.
up by people who are choosing,
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
and at the same time, not having our landlords who are supplying these people places to live
Yeah.
that many of them aren't respecting anyway.
Prior to 2005, when it was changed to what it is now, we should have records that we could go back and look at. How much were we getting hit every
It
year?
was bad. It was
But
really bad.
were we putting it on their credit though, back then?
No.
We'd have to research that, so, that was something we could do, and
We did have a meeting and a discussion for, it was an excessive amount of time. We were late that evening, and the gentleman who works in the water department, I'm not sure of his name at this point because I forget names.
Mike Cowell?
Yeah, right before it was Candy,
It was
who was
before
still
me.
here. We made the suggestion of, can't they do credit checks? Oh, we don't have time for that. Oh, we can't do this. Oh, we'd have to hire extra people. These were things you said. Where are we gonna get the extra money for the extra employee? We can't do that. Who are we gonna charge you credit? We did have those discussions. We did have those discussions. And then it was squashed and it was down to, are we gonna charge the landlords or are we not? And every time anything comes up, you say, I'm gonna, a tree falls over, we're gonna raise the water rates.
oh, come on,
I mean, but I'm
You
just
know,
saying, that's
It's
their
starting to feel
go-to.
that way.
are you serious?
I'm dead
Oh,
serious.
jeez.
I mean, I've heard you say it
You
at
know,
least 10
I will
times.
gladly discuss this on a reasonable, and tell you that we need, and Joyce can tell you, she'll back me up. Now, if you have another solution to raise the money, you tell me what it is.
I'm telling you.
Tell me what it
You just
is.
said the other day, that $80,000 or $100,000
You
that
want
we
to
get
add
from
something, you better
Nevada.
speak.
You said the $80,000 or $100,000 we get from Nevada is nothing. It's not gonna matter. But when it's something that's gonna cost you, then it's something. There's your
I didn't say
money.
it's nothing, it's
Yes, you
nothing.
did.
Jeez.
I was sitting here.
Never mind.
You know, the things that you mentioned, the city should do, not the landlord. The landlord, we should be out of it. We don't buy the water. All we do is furnish the house for the tenant. They pay us the rent. They buy water from you. They buy gas from the gas company. They buy electric from the power company. And the city is the only one that passes on, if they don't pay, passes on to the landlord. And part of that probably is worse by doing that, that takes the tenant off the hook in one respect. The only time I've got hooked on it, and it's been several times, but if people were moving out of the state or something like that, they would leave the water on. They don't care if they're gone. And they know it's gonna go to the landlord. If the city is down there shutting that baby off, because you can and we can't, it makes a whole different story. Number one is I totally disagree with putting it to the landlord, but my real concern is on the vote, because I believe, I just have this gut feeling that Rob has given these people information that would scare them a little bit. To enough, since they mentioned some staying in and not voting, that tells me that they're a little bit worried about the ethics of the thing. And if they vote for it or they abstain from voting, that takes them out of it completely. If they vote no, it takes them out of it completely. But if they vote yes, and then they're worried that they're gonna get a subpoena, go to court, or I don't know how that ethics is handled. That's what worries me, and Rob won't tell me, he won't give me the same information. I'm a resident, I should, and you work for me as well as the city. I mean, I've had other law directors tell me, I work for you. Why can't you tell me the same thing you tell them, just so I can make in my mind clear that there's gonna be a fair vote? I don't think there's gonna be a fair vote.
How about we just collectively, the city asks the Ethics Commission to look into this exact situation for a opinion by them? Because they're the ones that are gonna prosecute.
That's right. Well, right. And give everybody a fair chance to vote the way they feel. Because most of them know it's not fair what we're doing. I mean, I agree with Kurt. So everything be held off till we find out what that is?
Oh, yeah.
So is that have to be a motion, and am I allowed to do it?
I'm going to ask
Contact
the
the
ethics committee.
for us.
Yeah,
as
any of
a-
us
Yeah.
are
I think
not
everybody
contacted.
can
I
ask
just
the
think it
ethics
makes sense to have one person contacted
Or-
stating all of the.
As the president, would you do that?
Who,
Doing that?
You
could-
went to the ethics commission once before for something.
Yeah,
And you
Yeah.
contacted them directly.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
contacted them directly for a case.
there's a process. You write them a letter and you can request a
I tell you
formal.
what, I will write them a letter and I will send it on behalf of the council president because I don't want, Rob's already got one opinion out there. I kind of want a neutral opinion back from the ethics commission.
I think the last time we did it only took like,
3 weeks to get
yeah,
the
I
answer
was
back.
gonna say 2-3 weeks. It wasn't real long.
And I guess right now, I would like to follow up with what Lisa did say, though. With the help of Kevin Myers, we did narrow it down that any new water customer could be charged like a
$5.51.
fee for,
$5.51 is what the per use cost
For
would be to
utility
run
credit check.
a utility background check.
and it
It's
wouldn't
different
be
from credit
anything
check.
out of the city's
No.
pocket or coffer. It would be out of the new water customer.
Right.
And we had talked about a sliding fee scale also for
Correct.
people with worse utility credit versus really good utility credit, with the minimum being whatever it was.
But I think that all comes out of
So there has been discussion.
that office makes those.
There was a gentleman here from
procedures.
Galleon, I remember him speaking and saying that Galleon doesn't do things this way. There are no the surrounding cities don't do things that way.
Okay.
That,
Jim?
that $5 fee would be to, not somebody that's changing residence, it would just be
A new customer.
a new customer.
So like when I start my water,
Yes,
that I haven't had in a few years,
I
I
just wanted to make that
would have to pay that.
clear.
Anybody got anything?
Well,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
that may not, if you're talking about new customers only, that may not catch the person that's got 5 shutoffs in the last 5 places they lived. Over the last
Bucyrus,
2
the water
years.
department has that information.
Well, that's what the gentleman who I got the information from said exactly, that's what it's gonna find out.
Well-
You know, if you've got a student loan that you are or are not paying on, that's not gonna come into play as much as what your phone bill, your gas, electric, and water bills, any utility that reports. So it would have to be like, and we don't report currently. Part of that fee is we could start reporting
So you're saying not necessarily a new person, but a new
a
account?
new account.
Okay.
So if I
that's a little bit
decide I'm gonna
different.
move
It's
across the
different.
street, I'm not a new customer.
It's a new account.
Yeah.
Yeah, so wording it that way,
Yeah. Somebody who
Semantics,
doesn't
but-
currently have an account, they're not transferring from one address to another.
but that's the point I was getting to though. If it is somebody that's transferred from one place to another, even though they may be current today, they may have had a history of,
Well, I don't know how
No.
everybody else would feel about it, but if I'm the customer and I am moving, to a different house in town, and I have to pay a $5 fee to determine what my deposit's gonna be, I'm okay with that. I mean, that's the cost of doing business.
but new account, not, because I think that's a
Yeah.
wider
Yeah.
net than just new person.
Now, is that something that has to come from council, or is that something that just the water department can do on their own to enter into a contract with them?
The ordinance says that the service safety director sets the rates. That would be,
So maybe we
not
wanna
be a
add to that
rate.
ordinance.
probably want to add something to that ordinance and you may want to add, if it's $5.50, you may want to add a little bit to cover some administrative costs and things like that. And it's probably going to go up, everything does.
Something you just said, the safety service director sets the rates for the water,
Yes,
is that what you said?
yes,
That's what I heard.
That's by Ohio Revised Code, isn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
We couldn't even change that if we wanted to, I don't think.
Yeah, well, if you had a charter.
Okay.
We don't want to go to charter.
It'd take you a year just to get it.
Right.
So is that something that we'll
Some-
table for now?
Somebody needs tasked with the job of looking at the ordinance and making a suggestion as to how to change it. I don't know if that falls on law director's office or.
You want to add something to that sets a fee for doing the utility check and So it's at least revenue neutral and maybe actually has some administrative cost to it. We can draft something.
If I may, one of the issues that you need to also include in your ordinance is that you're saying a customer comes in and he's got to be current at his last place before he can go forward. Some of the problem is, it's this, John Smith is registered here in the account and he's delinquent and gets shut off. They leave that establishment and Jane Smith comes in and signs up for the next one. She has no delinquency, so they can't make the family unit pay for it. And sometimes that happens 3 to 4 times with who's living in the units together.
Well, how is the county doing it on their billing out to North Robinson?
Fortunately, we don't have a lot of the issue that there's a different personnel. I'm just gonna leave it, but we don't have the numbers. I got 170, I don't have 5,500. So by numbers, I have a lot less, and we don't turn off. We just go out if it's the end of the month and turn them off, and they haven't paid, we turn them off. And in fact, under contract, your gentlemen are going out and turning it off now. And when they pay their bill, we turn them back on. But most of ours are all homeowners, owner-occupied homes, and it does make a big difference. I do criminal background checks on my rental place that I have, and they have to pay that fee to me to do a credit and criminal background check before they're allowed to be approved to move into my community.
How much is that fee?
I end up paying because you have to have a secure place for that, and they no longer would let me do it at my house because my kids use the computer. So I pay at another firm $35 a piece, and every tenant that wants to move in my place has to pay that, or they don't get to move in.
And I see nothing wrong with that.
I figure if they can't pay the $35, they
They
can't
can't
move
pay your
in.
rent, exactly.
Well, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I was advised on that $5.51 fee, if they're doing that downstairs in the utility department, they're getting an instant answer on what that credit score is. So if they were to develop a sliding scale chart, the minute, if you walk in and want to set up an account, you're not asking them to come back in 2 weeks when we get an answer for you. They're able to do that immediately.
It can happen quick. Those turnarounds aren't long.
He said it was like, once you type in that person's name and address and social, you literally get the utility score.
If you have the permission and the clearance and the security. The reason I quit is I was told they were gonna have to fly somebody in from Atlanta, Georgia to inspect my house. And I told them,
We probably fall under different rules here.
yeah, but,
Yeah.
So if they're doing that, as far as the credit check, then can we somehow make the deposit more manageable for those that have, and a little excessive for those that are a little shady? Not pay, that don't pay well.
Make the deposit go in line with what the utility score is.
Yes, because that also gives them an incentive.
Right, if you take somebody who pays their bills on time every
I
time.
mean, it's no
in
different than
excess.
getting a bank loan.
At what point do you cut them off and tell them they can't live in Bucyrus anymore?
What do you mean? When they can't get utilities, that's not my problem if they can't pay their bill. They have to pay their bills. You have to
Not
pay
that
your
they can't,
bills.
they don't.
Yeah, that they won't.
Okay.
Because there are avenues out there for people that do need assistance. There's a community action program. You get into a pinch, there are certain areas that will help people. These are less delinquent, they're more delinquent, less, they're just not paying their bills. And then they're skipping.
Well, and they know
And then
which
the
bill they
landlords
can get
suck.
away with not paying too.
Absolutely, I'm sure there's a game. I don't play it, but I'm sure there's some way that they've learned to manipulate the system. And it's sad because I feel that innocent people are suffering. I also don't want the city to suffer, but at the same time,
And these credit checks, though, they'll catch the age, that's my big question. Well, you know, if I don't pay my bills, but my kids' credit isn't bad here because they haven't never had a bill.
Well, it's not a credit score, or it's not a
Right.
credit score, it's a utility
It's
score.
a utility score.
But
Will it catch the?
I don't know, do you have to have a minimum
Because-
age to have an account here in town? I
You
mean,
have to be
can a
at least
4-year-old have a
18.
utility account?
I know people who have put bills in their 4-year-olds.
So maybe that's some stuff that
So
the
that's
office
something
needs to
I would-
also look at.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, will it catch that? Is that the kind of thing that will be caught by this?
See how
Because
much more demographic information they can capture on an application.
I think the 100,000 that the mayor's talking about, I think if these people know that it's gonna stick with them, I think they throw it at the landlord more, knowing that it's out of their credit. But if it's on their credit, I don't think we're gonna see the 100,000 a year. I think it'll be a lesser amount, because they're playing that game.
Yeah, and eventually the game has to stop. There's an end to that game if there's a way to catch them.
Well, and if
There
there's a
is no
civil judgment
consequences
against,
if
if we have a civil
landlord
judgment
can't
against
borrow.
somebody that didn't pay, and they wanna go and get financing for a loan for anything, a lot of times they have to satisfy that civil judgment before. they
I
can
heard
sell.
of a guy 10 years later that somebody that he had a civil judgment came to him and they said they were trying to get a house loan and the bank flagged that civil judgment and they ended up paying that 10-year-old judgment with interest.
So, I guess to get back to what Kevin was saying, you would like maybe a draft ordinance that has a provision for collecting an administrative fee for a utility background check. Maybe work with the service safety director to have as part of that a sliding scale for deposits based on that score, and we can get some information as to what those scores look like, if it's
Yep.
1 to 10.
I'll provide you and the utility office and the service
Okay.
director the name and contact info for the gentleman from that company.
And a minimum age for accounts. I don't know, I've never seen anything, I
Don't
don't,
they have to sign? It's been a very long time since.
yeah,
I've
I don't know, but
but
we'll make sure that there's a minimum age for accounts. You know,
You should probably have to show a photo ID and
Yes.
social and all that stuff.
Yes,
Driver's
I
license.
think they do that, I think
Yeah.
they do that on new
Yeah.
accounts, like,
I would think.
get the driver's license.
Well, and that is, do they ask for a photo ID? Because, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't have photo IDs.
I don't think so.
I would think you would have
Right,
to.
so
I would
as
think
part,
you would have to have a photo ID.
you'd be amazed how many people don't.
State ID.
So
something.
we can check with the company to see what they need as far as ID.
Yeah, and they very well may tell you the name of a few cities that are already doing this, where they might share their sliding scales with you too, so
Yeah.
that might be worthy of looking at.
Okay, all right.
And make sure they're in the area, you know what I mean, or like our size, not.
San Diego.
Yeah.
Well, and if your credit's good enough, you might not even have a deposit.
I would
You gotta at least have a 1 month.
He's laughing too.
Yeah.
It's just like, you think he's gonna go without a deposit on his property? Oh.
I don't care if your credit's $850, you still gotta have at least a month or two's bill
Does it just stay there?
as a protection.
So we'll continue as a work in progress.
And then if you run the water bill, they apply.
To your final bill, yeah, and then they send you the rest.
Mr. Harris, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I have a couple.
I will say as a homeowner, you don't have to pay the rest.
Gary Harris, landlord. Couple of issues I've had in the past is once the city puts on our property taxes a water bill, and a tenant comes in after that, they don't look to collect anything. It's all paid because we paid it, and there's no consequences to them.
You get to start.
That's what I have found.
That was my problem, yeah.
To the city, it shows that that bill was satisfied.
Yes.
Yep.
Another problem I've had, because Mike and I went around a couple times. Once they shut off, and I don't know if they're still doing it or not, but they were. Once the water was shut off, water department continued to bill a minimum bill. And they kept it, doing it for several months.
I don't understand.
They do that to places where the water's been shut off and the building's been torn down as well.
And that's not right. Once it's shut off, it's
Is
shut
there a
off.
minimum
That's,
bill?
that'd be.
Yes, they bill a minimum
Yeah,
bill.
When it's the
stormwater and trash
stormwater-
can, yeah.
Everything.
So stormwater will continue.
Well, not only that, they were billing them water, sewer, everything else.
Trash.
Yes. Even though they shut them off.
Could we ask Mike to be at a meeting so we could ask him what the basic
That would be nice.
storm charge is, what this type
The,
of.
the regular house storm, I think it's $6 per house. And then if it's like a
Because
multi.
no one's living there.
Oh, is it $4?
It's $11.20
Right.
Yeah,
Per regular house unit?
for every house
For
unit.
every house.
yeah.
It's $4 and $7.20. There's two separate ones.
You gotta set.
They might have a rental that's
Other-
empty, I give them
It's
20.
too much bills.
Two bills, $4 and
Because it's for the
$7.20.
product.
Well, that's the stormwater, that's
Right.
where the water's coming into the gutters and whatever else that has to still be processed by the city.
The other issue, one other issue is, when I write up a lease, and I don't know how most other landlords write up their leases, but I have both husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend on that lease. When they get down to the water department, I don't know whose name they put it
I
in,
just want.
but they're supposed to have a copy of the lease with them.
It's there.
And if they're checking credit or whatever they're checking, they should be looking at both names.
Agreed.
Because I don't know whose name they put it in.
Right, and it should flag both those names if there is a delinquent account.
Yes.
If it's a rental, they're already asking for a name of every person over 18 living in that house. I know this because I moved into a rental with somebody.
But they're asking,
They-
they should
they
be
want-
showing verification, like he said, the lease
And
agreement
a lot of
with the
people don't
individual's
say.
names on there.
Maybe we could also have a provision where you as a landlord are allowed to bring a copy of the lease in to them, that way they know the names.
Well, I've got a page on my lease that lists everybody's name as they have told me.
I'm saying share that with the utility.
Well, they have it with their lease to bring in.
We require leases.
Oh, well, we do
Yeah, we
require
didn't
that.
used to. but
Okay.
we
I didn't
started
know we were
requiring
doing
leases.
that.
Do you keep a copy of that lease?
I'd have to ask them downstairs, I don't
Last
know.
I knew, they just looked
I
at it.
don't know.
I don't know the answer.
They should have a copy.
Do you want to get Mike back in our service committee meeting?
Mike is out for a couple of weeks, he had shoulder surgery. I'm not sure when he's coming back.
And his sister has passed away.
Well, I mean,
My sister passed away too.
there's information downstairs we can ask, or I'm
Mike-
sure Jeff Wagner knows.
Mike, yeah, Mike would be the go-to guy there. We can probably get as much as we can for.
Well, if it's just
He's coming out several weeks.
I say, can Jeff get all that information and bring it in?
Yeah, but what if you compile a list of questions by email? You can email us with all your questions and we'll get answers for you at the next meeting.
Go ahead, Glenn.
The other thing, it's all nice that you get a list of everybody that moves in, and the guy says, well, it's just me moving in, and next week, there's two of his buddies move in. And, you know, I have to deal with that issue all the time. I had two, and one of them was an officer for the state, and he had three others move in. And I didn't know it until I saw the extra vehicle parking in the parking lot, you know?
Then 3 days later, they get an eviction notice.
You know? And 6 weeks later, we finally get there, and I was unallowed for the last 9 months to evict anybody. And I am now allowed to do that again, and I have filed again. So, but, you know, that is
You can do it in
the
30
other
days,
side.
right?
I don't want
What's
to
that?
say no, but it isn't as easy as we want it to be.
No,
Right.
no, I
It's a
don't know, I've
continuing-
never filed an
It's
eviction. I don't know how long it
It,
takes.
it all depends on the fight and
I
how
just-
many
just
times
impressed
things
me.
get set back and how busy the court is. He can't decide for
Yeah.
Luthold's court when they're gonna get something in.
And evictions don't come through me.
I've never had one over, years ago, I've had one the last 6 months, but in the last 10 years, 30 days,
Current magistrate's pretty quick with them.
yeah. I'm pretty selective too anymore.
Yeah, me too. That's why I have half occupancy.
Anybody got anything further? Okay, here's, I can't really see the clock.
7:16.
7:16, and we're going to recess at 7:16. Thank you for everybody, very, very nice to have a discussion and try and get something done. Thank you.
Okay. As of 7:17, let's call the Public Lands and Building Committee to order. We're starting with the CARES Act funds.
I didn't write this up, I don't know.
My notes say Joyce will take care of it here.
Really?
Mrs. Chair, Madam Chair, I think this is a question for the administration. Is this related to the commercial water meters? Because these were two separate referrals on Monday, but I think they're
Right, it's
related.
commercial water meters, so.
Okay. We already discussed that.
So do we have anything to do with that for Public Lands and Buildings then?
It was referred to public lands and buildings, but,
Excellent, first point done.
very good.
Boy, you screwed through that.
Yeah, that was easy. Okay, and then the next one is the city parking lots.
There was a discussion the other night about paving two lots. And what I'd like to propose to you is that we rate the lots, we take pictures and rate which ones are the worst, get estimates of all of them. And I think number 3, I was told somebody may want to purchase. So I rather than fixing it up and, paving it, we want to just.
Quick question. When all this was done, because I wasn't here yet, and I know it's been mentioned since, but we sold a lot, and that was supposed to immediately pay for at least 1 to 2 others to be paid.
Yep.
And so those were already mentioned prior to me even being here as to the fact that this was going to be done.
When was it discussed that we were going to pave it? I don't remember.
It was a budget last year.
It was in the budget, okay.
Yes.
So the problem is if, we just got the money. I'm not sure we have the money yet. Do we have the money for that?
It's in the CIC.
It's
Douglas.
Did we get the check?
Well, I got the check,
Doug said it got sent.
end of last week,
Okay, we didn't have it the last meeting, so,
and there's nothing appropriated in that fund right now
so.
to pay anything.
So I guess the
Yeah, they were
question
told they had to wait
is there,
until the money got to.
as the paving season ends, is it?
Yeah, that only goes.
You know, I don't even know if you have enough time even to, because these guys are just working like crazy to try to wrap up. And if you, now you have the issue, if somebody wants to buy 3, I mean, would you still want to pave it, or you still have money to go to 6? But 6 is really in bad shape. That's where the Elverson Hotel was. That's the worst one.
We have had a discussion about selling City Lot 3 already and come to the conclusion that we weren't gonna sell it.
If somebody did it, they were interested in buying it, possibly, Mr. Rockwell.
Well, last year we discussed it, Mr. Ridgway was interested, Mr. Rockwell was not, and we discussed it, and at that time, I think the committee decided they did not want to sell it. That was previous year's council
Correct, that was when Sislov, and yes.
in Wireball.
And she spoke against, Sislov spoke against it, and there was enough of us that said, no, we didn't want to sell it. And we were going
Still feel the same way?
No, I've been the one who keeps saying, why are we owning property that we have to maintain that we are not benefiting from? That's what I'm saying, especially that number 3 parking lot and number 4. Why are we taking care of those 2 parking lots that isn't benefiting other than Wendy's and Pisanello's and the Crazy Fox and Dillinger's? Now, I don't mind, but it's not benefiting, and maybe a little bit of the Horseshoe. But
There's
it's,
that food pantry down there that uses some of that over there.
I'm sorry?
That food pantry where Strubles was, they end up with people filling all of it when they're.
But still, that, why are
Well,
we
So my
maintaining?
next question for that
Bratwurst
is,
Festival.
yeah, and Bratwurst Festival, but my next question for that is
People
if
come to
somebody
town, they go to
owns
park
it,
somewhere.
are they going to be
City
able
law.
to, are they going to be able to tell other people that they're not gonna be able to use it? So if Rockwell bought it, is he gonna be able to look at Ridgeway and say, sorry, have your customers park elsewhere?
He has every right to do that.
Exactly,
But I'm
which
saying.
is why it's a city lot, I'm not being a jerk, I just.
I am saying, in order to sell that one, it would have to be split between the two of them. I would
Well,
not
what
go
about
to,
the
I would
issue?
not agree to sell it to one, that he would cut it off from the other. The gentleman who owns Dillinger's, he would like to buy it because he can't police it. That's why he's wanting that also, it'll help him control that portion of his parking lot. And we could split that in half, saying straight with your property lines to the property line, that it would be yours.
But what about the horseshoe? That also backs into there.
I'm just saying, it's just a
We-
possibility.
Do we lose the say of, okay, now that parking lot's ridiculous and in disarray, and it needs to be maintained, if it's not ours and it's theirs, and they
Correct, it's
don't wanna
private property.
maintain it,
It's still, they still have to comply with the city zoning ordinances. So if a parking lot is not
so
maintained
we're
to
not
the
in
ordinance.
compliance, are we?
uh,
Cause it's real bad.
Yeah.
Mr. Me had something.
We also have an IUE, 704 IUE, that doesn't use a lot of parking spots back there, but tomorrow it's gonna be full because we're voting on the contract.
See, that's.
You know, they're gonna say, hey, you guys can't use this parking lot anymore.
That's my big question, because I mean, I know businesses that have been in there, like,
Hundreds.
Where is number 4
all along
located?
there, have used all that.
Parking lot.
It is out here at Wendy's, the section along the alley and next to
Behind the wall.
Clady's.
And someone wants to purchase that?
No,
No,
For
I'm just
them,
saying.
they declined.
Well, when you say get rid of it, who you selling it to? That's, I guess, what my question is.
you know who parks in that parking lot is, Wendy employees.
I was talking about 3, not 4. It's Wendy's employees that use it. So maybe possibly Wendy's would be interested in purchasing it.
Yeah, if their employees are the ones
We
that
offered
park
that
there,
to
then we
them
should
when
get
they
off
were
of that.
rebuilding, they declined, I believe.
When they were remodeling, they declined that?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Then, so we're saddled.
Why do it when you're giving it to them for free? I mean, why would you buy it? That's just,
Back to the lot 3, there's a possibility that Dillinger's and the Crazy Fox could form like an LLC and then jointly own it, and then,
But that doesn't protect it from the future.
what do you mean?
One of the two could back out of the LLC, or the LLC could dissolve, and that, that doesn't protect it. I think if you're, for your point that you're making, the only thing you can do is split it to go with each
Well,
property.
Ridgeway did tell me he was, if he could add on to his building, he was thinking about making the kitchen bigger, maybe adding a drive-through. And that would give him the ability to do that if he owned that, or at least that half of it.
if he can comply with the current zoning ordinances.
Well, we're gonna come to you and get a,
Not me, I'm only one of 5.
what do they call it, a waiver or variance?
What we'd like to do as soon as possible is get in there and clean it within the next couple of weeks.
Especially since there's a wagon tied to a telephone pole for how many years?
Oh, that's been going on for a year.
We want to get everything out of there, so we go in and clean it, and whether we have to power wash it or sweep it with a backhaul, that's our first order of business to do. And so.
You're saying that's prior to you wanting to mill it and.
Right,
I don't-
It's too late to do that.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna
They
say,
couldn't do anything.
If we have a mild fall, they could end up getting it.
I would not do it now.
I don't think it'll hold.
As an engineer, What would be a good time to do it? If we're talking
Sure,
mid-November
August.
to late November, it's not a good time to really do it.
Well, why don't you-
Correct.
I will say, I prefer June, July, August as an engineer. It's just the better heat. I am saying that
You get more
the
bang for your buck.
contractor is booked solid right now and is trying to get stuff done that maybe was promised a year ago.
And I would say in this town, really, we gotta watch anything downtown in August.
And if you get somebody that can come in today or in the next week, you may not want them.
Yeah.
Well, they repaved State Route 19 in late
You
November,
can
early
do it
December.
if you got
It
work.
had to
The
do
plant's
a lot of
gonna
repairs.
shut down mid-November.
I was gonna say,
Thanksgiving
excuse
is
me,
usually the shutdown
Do
day.
you remember them
Other
coming back
plants will
the
run until
following year and
December.
having to redo
Yeah.
sections of it?
They had to
Yes,
redo
they had to
paving
redo
Because they did it
sections.
too late and it didn't hold up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying
Well,
it's too
can't we
late.
just put the money aside until next year and take care
But
of
yeah, I
this
mean,
then?
can we go ahead and decide?
We put in the budget for next year, and I guess it's time to assess it, and then if you.
Well,
If
doesn't
you
the
want,
money
we can
just,
put it out
It's
there
in
early
the
in
property
spring.
improvement fund, it'll sit there
Yeah.
until next year.
Could we put the parking lot up for bid and maybe not accept a bid just to see what interest is out there?
That's that gentleman right there.
You could put it up for bid with like a minimum bid or something.
We could, do you want us to get it appraised?
Solicit
How much does
RFPs.
that cost?
$200.
You want to say 500 maybe? Because I can't remember what we did for the baker's lot, but I want to say $500.
Are we doing any more patchwork with asphalt this year?
I'm sure the service department is doing some.
Because to the point of the alley there, right next to the mural, off of the square, out of the Millennium.
Millennium Park.
There's a huge crater right there as you're heading down that alley. I don't know if that's something that could be patched up
You're talking about
temporarily.
in the parking lot or in the alley?
It's actually in the alley,
alley.
next to the parking lot.
It's okay. Oh, yeah, I'll.
I've hit it a few times.
Go ahead and look at it.
Okay, Lisa?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe too.
Is there anything as a landlord that we should do to repair, at least patch it?
We'll go in and look at it and clean it and patch it this year. Fix it up before the end of, before the season's good.
Just to keep people from having an issue because of the.
Yeah, we're not, just we'll have to notify all the owners, move their dumpster and all the stuff that's been sitting there and sweep it good and clean it up. So.
We're the city lot 3, right? Okay.
Yeah.
As far as cooking grease, does that attack blacktop?
Yes, I think I would say it would.
I was gonna say, because there is a big cooking grease dumpster back there, and blacktop looks like it's all chewed up, but I just wanted to get your opinion.
He'd be the expert, but I think it's.
I'm saying it can soften them and do that just like tree sap. If you look under a lot of maple trees and stuff, you'll see your asphalt start to deteriorate a lot of times. Not always, but a lot of times. Yeah.
Shouldn't they be on a concrete pad or something, Mr. McKee? Mr. McKee, shouldn't they?
Yeah,
Concrete pad or something?
we usually build concrete pads at all the restaurants that we work in
Yeah. it's where-
and put that there, but,
Well, that brings up another question,
And we're,
about charging rental for that. So if we're gonna pay for a concrete pad, we should charge rental for it, so we can look at all those things. what
I was
we
gonna
decide.
say, is there a way to find out what it would be to, all right, if we keep these lots because we're not sure how this is gonna work with all the businesses right there, being able to jointly use it nicely. If they can, that's awesome, and they wanna buy it but if not, when we repave it, should we put a concrete pad in and for each business has to pay for their concrete pad that goes in there for their
Yeah, I think that's a
dumpsters?
great idea.
Lease
We'll look
section.
into that. And Back with you, 'cause that'll-
Plus, that sets it in one spot versus moving it, because the dumpsters have been moved, I don't know how many times in the lot, as to whoever wants to put it where.
And you'd want to put it on the far side of the parking lot, away from where everybody walks in the doors, on the back side.
But, okay, so,
Right now, there's more dumpsters than there are parking spots, I think.
Yeah, it's an issue. That's
Just
really
about.
important.
The whole one side.
Yeah.
Okay.
but, all right, so I guess we gotta recess that as well then, and until we have one, wait, we got one?
One more public lands and building. Since the
Yes,
city hall doors are in the committee, I mentioned it, I don't know if it was the last public lands and building meeting or the meeting before. And possibly an ordinance or something saying that all elected officials shall have a key to the front door of City Hall. And my reasoning for that is if any of you need to get into this room to have one of your committee meetings or something, because right now, we have no access to the building other than what he allows us to
Well,
have.
the police have a key.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
but the police have a key, and with the fact that we're
Well-
all elected,
Todd used to have a key and they confiscated it from him back in March.
Todd, what did you do?
We did, let me speak to that.
Eh.
When we had, when COVID came in, you know, we did put some keys out because we were having erratic hours and we were closed certain times. So what we decided to do quickly, I said, it's not working. We will meet people at the doors, you know, so,
But what if you're not here?
well, we always are, we work. And then now what we do is we just leave the doors
If
open.
I would say, if I show up at 3 AM, am I gonna find you?
No, we're not, during business hours. After business hours, and I think Joyce can speak to this, I don't, she's been here the longest, it's never been an issue. I mean, the police, if you have to get in after hours, the police department has keys.
I was gonna say, the police can get you in the building, it's whatever.
They never let me in when I asked them.
There might be a reason for that.
Well, what I'm getting at here is, you know, Todd and me gotta oversee that office over there. And if we can't get in because we need to get something, that's a problem. I think, Joyce, do you have a key to the front door of City Hall?
Yes,
She
I do.
has a key. Rob has a key.
That happened just since COVID,
The mayor has a key.
because I come in and work on weekends, many times.
She has an office, she has people working on weekends, and so, when she's trying to, you know, with auditing, it can work at all hours, and stuff that has to be done, so.
Well, if I gotta get in there for something, I gotta do.
I don't see why you can't have it. I mean, you're a department head.
That's what I'm getting at. Every other department head in this building has a key but me.
I understand us, but,
It's okay, it's up to me, it's up, you'll vote on it, I think it's, you know, I don't know what the tradition is.
Did Sis Love have a key?
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think she had,
Front door.
no, Sis did not have.
I was gonna say, I
Well, we didn't lock the door back then either.
I didn't think Sis had a key
Well,
yet, but.
it's open now, isn't it? The doors are open now?
Yeah,
Yeah, like they used to be. Same hours?
well, we locked them at 5 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
No, the front doors, the police lock the front doors at like 8 or 9.
No, we lock them at 5 when we leave. On the weekends, then the police open and shut them.
So if someone wants to come in and talk to someone in the police department, how do they get in?
Back door.
Back door.
Ring the bell, yeah.
Or we could have an ordinance that all department heads shall have a key to the building.
Or we could have an ordinance that none of the department heads have a key to the building and they all go to the police department. Every one of them.
I bet every department head at the courthouse has a key to get in.
They have a fob system. You get in certain doors. My
Yeah.
fob only allows me in certain
Let's
doors.
see. Let's
Are
get
the new
fob
doors
system.
gonna have fobs?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
The key fobs, I mean, that makes so much more sense anyway.
Yeah, well, we're changing the doors.
Right,
It's gonna be-
so when we put the new ones in, can we do a fob system? And then it wouldn't be as big of a deal.
I'm not sure what kind of system we're putting in. They were here today working on it, but, you know, we can look into all that and get back. How about we look into it, see the possibilities, get back to at the next meeting, council meeting.
And in the meantime, you can get me a key.
Yeah, because, I mean, I don't know, a fob system, if you weren't reelected and didn't turn your fob in, they'd just change the code and recalculate everybody's fob, versus a key system, it costs a whole lot more to change the locks if somebody doesn't turn in a key, or somebody broke into your truck, stole all your extra keys, just happened to have the one for the city building, you know what I'm saying? Things like that, that's why I start picturing, because my mother loses keys a lot, so I know how expensive it can get.
Well, it was an issue at one point because at one point neither Todd nor I had access to the office.
That's what I'm saying.
For several days.
Making sure that
and
there's a way to have access.
we had public records requests coming in during that time and we could not get into the building is what my concern was.
The office was open every day except at 12 to 1, they were closed to noon.
But,
You know,
but them needing to get into their office.
Yep.
They have a key to their office.
But it doesn't do
But
us
they
no good
never
if we can't get in the
the
front
building,
door.
is what he was saying. But yeah.
You always go to the police department, they always let you in, so.
What if they don't let me in?
Then
They
you
will
can
let you
complain
in.
on the
Why wouldn't
city.
they let you in?
Well, they told me once that you told them not to let me in.
That, you know that's a lie. You know that's a bald-faced lie.
All right, let's move on.
Next,
Let's move
okay,
on.
so do we have anything else for, Public Lands and Buildings Committee?
Not at the moment.
Okay, then we will recess Public Lands and Buildings at 7:38.
Okay, I'll call finance to order. It's 7:38.
Mr. Chair, just first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for September 17. No amendments were requested for these minutes unless none are requested tonight. You're just approving them as is.
That's what I was going to just say. Thank you, Todd. So, I need a motion to accept the minutes. There was no request for any corrections, so
So moved.
do I have a second? All those in favor say aye. Good. 2021 OPWC grants. We gotta wait for the thing to come through, so we'll move on.
It's going fast.
Hey,
It's gonna take you longer to read the minutes.
I'm not gonna read the minutes. Okay, commercial water meters. Well, we're waiting on that. CARE Act Fund. Gotta wait on that. Joyce, so you can get going.
Okay, as I referred, I have several appropriations. We're getting ready to close out the 2020 Ohio Crime Victims Assistance Grant. And we hadn't quite appropriated all the money that was in there, so I need to do it now because any unused funds have to go back. So I need to appropriate to Fund 283, the 2020 Ohio Crime Victims Assistance Grant, under Victim Advocate, $3,144.85. And this is to finish out the grant and then return unused funds. Then in the 2021 Ohio Crime Victims Assistance Grant, we were very fortunate. This particular grant, they did not cut our funding this year. They kept it the same as last year. We were told it would be cut by probably 27%, and the Victims of Crime Act was cut, but this one was not. So to get us through this first quarter, I need to appropriate in Fund 285, the 2021 Ohio Crime Victims Assistance Grant, under Victim Advocate, $2,590.97 in personal services. Then we also received an insurance deposit for the fire loss on East Mansfield Street. And this needs to be appropriated into Fund 820, Derelict Building Liability Fund, under the Fire Department, Other Uses category, $26,260.
Okay, Does anybody have any questions?
And just real quick, I know everybody's anxious to go home, but I do want to say something about the Victims Advocate grant real quick. There were a lot of departments, some local, that received significant cuts, but I think it's a credit to the job that Sam Caldwell's been doing, not only locally, but interfacing with other agencies. He's brought in service for individuals that we've never had before. Volunteer lawyer assistance and a bunch of other things, but not only did we not get cut, we in certain categories we may even have a little bit more. But anyways, it's a credit to the job that Sam's been doing down there. It's a tremendous asset to our department.
Okay. Any questions? Otherwise, I'm going to ask for emergency legislation. Do you have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passed.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And to add to what Rod just said about Mr. Caldwell, Todd, I know you're real busy with a lot of stuff, but if you in the next couple of days or weeks have a moment to maybe put a letter together, just recognizing him from us that we could all sign at our next gathering, I think that we, sometimes when you do your tireless work like that, sometimes you just need to hear that you're doing a good job. I think we should do that.
What all has he brought in?
We have a number of new agreements in place with outside agencies. We have places now where we can place individuals that have been victims. We've been working with a couple of groups where we can place entire families now, women and children, and even pets. in certain
Or men and children and pets.
Yeah,
We're not going to assume that all the abusers.
Right. Most of the housing groups are usually, women only or women and families only. He's worked to bring us agreements with a couple of volunteer lawyer programs, and it's not indigent defense. But it provides assets for individuals. One of the biggest things we've always struggled with is in a domestic violence situation where there's no money, no family, victims can't get divorced. They don't have the filing fees. And they don't have access to attorneys and things like that. He's put together help so that there's groups now that come and will service individuals that need that assistance and get them in touch with attorneys that'll work with them. It's been a tremendous benefit. Additionally, just across the board, the services we've been able to provide for victims and families, and access to attorneys when they need it, when the victims need it, access to Victims Compensation Fund. Just done a tremendous job.
Okay. All right. The last thing.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's fine.
Just one other thing. I did refer a resolution accepting rates for our annual tax budget. I have not received the paperwork from the county auditor yet. The tax budget commission was supposed to meet October the 1st, so I thought I might have it today. So there is a possibility that we may need to prepare legislation and have a meeting before the next meeting just to approve that. I'm sure the rates are not going to change, but because they haven't in all the years I've been here.
We like to have meetings.
More you better.
Question for Joyce. I'm not complaining or anything, I just wanted information. The Gary Frankhouse check, you cut him a check for this month?
Yes,
And that'll come out of the October?
yes,
Is that the full 50
no,
that we obligated to him? So
no,
30?
30.
So we still owe him 20?
We had determined that we weren't going to pay the whole thing.
Good. Thank you.
The economic.
Crawford Partnership.
Crawford Partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we give him money to help.
Who's the guy that we bring up from Cincinnati?
No.
Oh, that was another one.
Branstetter?
That was Branson.
He's out. We replaced him with him.
Yeah.
He's
the-
Brandstetter Carroll is no longer our
Good.
Joke.
He's just finishing up.
They're finishing their project.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's it.
We've stepped up.
The final thing for
Well, we at
finance.
least came within 3-hour drives.
We were paying for them 3 hours.
I know we were, that's why I thought it was a joke.
Okay, let's stay on point. Final order for finance is ordinance number 225-2020 manpower. I'm gonna say we need to table this since we just got this. I just got the email. I've just seen this. I need time to look at it, let alone the rest of the committee. So we will refer this.
I oppose.
No? Okay.
I'd like to know what's going on, I'd like to at least discuss it. That's my opinion, that's one vote.
I guess my comment, Vicki DeShawn, 11 Lee Hillcrest Drive, is when I spoke about this on Monday and was asked to, if I would share my notes, which I did, and I told you, you know, when I would share those notes. At that time, there was no indication, well, we're not gonna get your notes until Thursday, which is typically when you get your packets on other issues. I mean, why didn't you then say, well, we're not gonna discuss it on Thursday? I mean, I have been sitting here patiently, waiting, and
I will give that.
that's just my comment.
So what choice?
I said we've all been sitting here waiting patiently.
Vicki, do you have a copy of this that we have here?
Do you have what we have? What do you have?
The ordinance typed up.
Oh, that says ordinance number 25-2020?
With the bold?
Yes, I'm the one that prepared that.
Okay, so this is yours.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
And I sent an email to the committee members and to Todd and have this attached.
I didn't understand what was, I mean, I understood what was going on, but I didn't understand that this was yours.
Well, I noticed that in the packet, my email wasn't included that would have explained
I was afraid to tell her, but now
who prepared
I'm
it.
so over it.
Well, can you go over it with us and tell us what you
Yeah.
changed here?
That's what I mean.
It's already here. If you
No.
can't read it, I don't know how you can't read it. I just hadn't had time to read the whole thing.
Well,
So, and I'm sorry, I work and I didn't have
So
time to
do I.
look at it while I'm at work. I just got the email, I just got it here. You're asking for us to change wording in here.
I would like to, because yes, I've given you my notes of what I discussed on Monday. I would like to elaborate on those notes.
Yeah, we should understand something for change. Proceed.
Okay. First off, as I was preparing for tonight's meeting, I came across some other corrections in addition to what I brought up at Monday's meeting. So with your approval, I would like to start with each separate page, like page 1 of 14. Okay, so first off, we're looking at section 2. And this is where we list, you know, the auditor's income tax office, law director's office, etc. In fact, I just noticed tonight that I'm not seeing the engineer in here. And the engineer was in ordinance 14-2020, along with the service safety director. And that was where we wanted then combine 14 and 13. You know, we had our separate manpower ordinance.
Vicki, was that from when we employed our own engineer versus contracting outside with one? Is that potentially why that was missed?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's what
No, you're not getting paid.
That's what I'm thinking, that was when we actually employed our own.
Bye.
But if you look at ordinance 14-2020, that was prepared, and that one before you had the various department heads. And this one was prepared to remove those various department heads because the service safety director took over those positions. And according to the third draft, the engineer was included. And on, give me a second
It
here.
probably didn't trigger any of our brains to
Okay.
remove it, since we have an engineer still, just now he's an outside contract versus
Okay.
where he was an employee. So I'd say that's one we just all overlooked.
Okay. So then that's fine, we can scratch that one, which will make the next a little easier. This is just more typo. We start out with B, auditor income tax office. We should have A. It would be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, rather than B, C. And that lines up with all the other drafts and. So does everyone understand that I'm,
Proceed.
section 3, and this will start with the notes that I gave you. My concern with section 3 was that ordinance 25/2020 states, all hourly paid full-time city employees other than the service safety director. And I questioned why the service safety director verbiage was placed in there, since he is a salaried employee. And on page 2 of 14, under, down at the bottom, or no, excuse me, well, let's wait a minute here, where is it?
Footnote 3.
The service safety director?
Under the footnote number 3, pay excess.
Yes, excuse me, yes. And it states that payable bi-weekly with no overtime.
No flex annual compensation.
So to me, I personally don't feel we need to have other than the service safety director.
Right.
However, if you feel the need to have other than the service safety director, I feel it's necessary then to also include the other salaried employees, which,
It'd be easier just to take them out.
I think so, but
Just take them out.
these are, I'm just pointing these out.
Simple enough.
Vicki, I just noticed something.
Sure.
The Access 19, I don't think it's I don't think it's channel 19 anymore.
Do we even have anything in
We
there?
don't even have, we're 100 something, or they're 200.
Yeah, probably just access.
So maybe the 19 should get scratched.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next, section 5, page 4 of 14. The second paragraph states, the basic work period of the legal assistant hereunder shall be 40 hours, wait a minute, let's make sure I'm reading the right one. Yeah, shall be 40 hours per week with any additional hours to be authorized by the law director. The one and only change that was made to this section by the committee was done on April the 14th. And at that time, the finance committee had the verbiage to say, the basic work period of the legal assistant hereunder may be up to 40 hours per week. At no time was it then changed to, back to, shall be 40 hours.
I was saying with the current pandemic issue and the fact that you're talking about not having as many hours there.
Yeah, that's why we requested the
So it
change.
should probably just say that.
Yeah,
Up
the-
to, not
Yeah,
shall be.
right, and that's why we requested that change originally, and then in the multiple drafts, it just went back and forth.
Got
It-
skipped over.
Yeah, it went back to what it was.
So in response to that then, why wasn't there, if you'll read First paragraph in section 5 states, unless otherwise specifically designated in the current collective bargaining contracts for the department with which a city employee is connected, 40 hours shall constitute the basic work week for compensation purposes. So then, why wasn't that verbiage changed?
Because that's the definition of what a basic work week is for anybody. Anything over 40, you get paid overtime. So that's,
But would you say up to 40 hours?
for the, in the second paragraph, for the legal assistant,
No, I mean, like anybody that, because if you're saying 40 hours is the work week and you just cut them work week because of something like the pandemic.
that's not what this is saying. This is defining what a work week is, what a week is for purposes of calculating overtime or anything like that.
It
So
could be
just
36 hours, it could be 48 hours.
When you cut their hours, did you do an MOU to do that?
They did MOUs with the
So
union.
could you, at the beginning there, section 5, unless otherwise specifically designated, yada, 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 or by use of an MOU, the work week would be 40 hours? Would that alleviate?
I say, yeah, making something that, because their basic work week, if you cut their hours, could be 30 hours.
But that's not what this is talking, this is not what setting that definition. I mean, it's.
But your
it's the-
definition of a work week is whatever you're going to have as a work week. So if you are in an undefinable amount of time, like with this pandemic, at 30 hours, that just changed the definition of a work week. So having it so that it's,
But
without having to
so
change all of this,
Why there was an MOU.
like
That's
he
what-
said, or by an MOU.
that's why there is an MOU, but this is talking about for. Yeah, you can make it say whatever you want.
I just asked the question, but.
It doesn't, it's just defining what a work week is, and the work week is 40 hours. And if you get paid more than that, if you want to define a work week as 30 hours, then are you saying that if somebody works 32, you're going to pay them 2 hours of overtime for those 2 hours? I guess that would be,
Well, that's why I asked about the up to
Yeah.
there. That way, if you had an MOU, it's still under.
but an MOU with the union wouldn't necessarily change this, because these are non-union employees.
Yeah.
It's just the terms of this are generally set by what the union contracts are. These employees get generally the same benefits, or,
And they're the people that
Under.
can't be covered by union.
right.
Last sentence on that section 5, first paragraph says eligibility for full-time employment benefits shall be granted to all employees regularly scheduled to work 29 hours or more per week.
I guess that's more the one where I.
If you're on salary, you're not regularly scheduled any hours, so technically anybody on salary should not be getting the full-time benefits by what that paragraph says.
But salary is an assumed full-time. I mean, you could give or take a few hours, but for a salary employee, that's an assumed full-time position, so that's, yeah.
I'm a salary position. You're a salary
Yeah.
position.
But we're not covered under this.
Yeah. Good luck to them.
It's not talking about people like us.
So I'm just so I'm understanding, before, when it said the legal assistant, hereunder shall be 40 hours per week. That's what it was before it was changed. Which then you changed it back, but then it was changed to maybe up to 40 hours per week, when that change was made on April the 14th. The reason that change was made was why again?
Because it says it shall be 40 hours per week,
Couldn't guarantee the 40 hours.
and we were going to a schedule for a short period of time that was less than 40 hours per week, and it gave flexibility wherein if we didn't want to schedule 40 hours in 1 week, we would not have to. The way it read is you're guaranteeing 40 hours per week.
Does the committee have any questions on
But
that?
we're back to this change of shall be 40 hours per week was never discussed and approved by.
No, I
the
think we agree that your notes were right, that this should say may be up to,
Yeah.
no, nobody's, I don't think anybody's disputing
Yours is
that.
good.
Oh, okay.
We're
Yeah,
arguing
no,
about
nobody's
that.
disputing that.
I'm sorry, I did not understand that. So this is going to be changed to read, the basic work period of the legal assistant here under shall be,
Or
Maybe.
maybe up
Maybe up
to.
to 40.
or maybe,
Yeah.
or maybe up to,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Got that.
Okay, so that's being changed back to
Yes.
what had been discussed and approved, okay, excuse me. Also in section 5, and this was not discovered by me until after Monday, the basic work period for the victim's advocate. The last sentence, on page 5 of 14, where it's up at the top, where it's talking about the victim's advocate. The last sentence says, the work hours for the code, I meant to say code enforcement. That's the section I want to talk about. So, excuse me, let's go to page 5 of 14. Top paragraph, last sentence, that says, the work hours for the code enforcement officer shall be set by the law director as needed, not to exceed 28 hours in any week. In all the other drafts that were prepared, and what was in the original ordinance number 26-2019, which was the manpower ordinance that we were changing, there it states that after the word week, there is the verbiage or 1,000 hours in a year. And that verbiage has been taken out. Again, that was never discussed at committee. Requested by committee to be removed. And I think if you take 28 and multiply that by 52, you come up with more than.
Is the reason that was in there in the first place was to prevent him from working year-round?
No, it was a limitation on what the
Keeps
budget
it
was.
part-time.
Yeah, we just have to, there's a budgeted amount, and we,
I think there's
Practically
been
the
multiple drafts of this and it's all kind of gotten mixed up.
No, it's very easy.
She's got it.
All you have to do is just take each draft, read the minutes, listen to the audio recording, and it all started with draft 4. And draft 4 is when the committee asked for the combination of 13 and 14, the ordinances, the manpower and the supervisor. And then when you ask for,
Well, I think they
the
combined them
wages for,
and they grabbed one of the wrong ones to combine with. And that's how we
no,
got.
mm-mm,
You don't think?
no, that's not what happened.
Well, in other words, we need to put 1,000 hours back in.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
just saying the
Well, yeah,
1,000
I
hours
mean-
was taken out, and it wasn't taken out
Either
per
put it
approval.
back or decide
Yes.
that it shouldn't be.
Well, let's just put it back in, because I didn't.
Okay, next,
Check and balance.
Excuse me?
next.
Section 6. This section 6 is the section 6. If you look at, I don't know if that was in your packet,
Yeah.
Ordinance 13-2020. This is not the section 6 that was in there. This section 6 has to do with the bargaining unit. If you read it, it says all full-time members of the bargaining unit who have finished 1 year. This is not the correct section 6. And this problem began when draft number 4 was prepared. Draft number 4, that's your problem right there. This is not the correct section 6.
What's the correct one look like?
If you take a look at ordinance 13-2020, that's section 6 is the correct one, and that's the section 6 that has appeared in the manpower ordinances for years.
And that's part of the issue here, the section 6, and the issue is in that first sentence where it says all full-time members of the bargaining unit. It should say all full-time employees not covered by a bargaining union. But section 6, section 8, section 11, those are all changes that occur because there were changes in the collective bargaining agreement. And our manpower ordinance follows those changes that are made in the collective bargaining agreements. So those changes in 6, 8, 11, those are all changes that the manpower ordinance, just because it follows those collective bargaining agreements, and that's the way it's always been done.
Then why wasn't this section 6 in the other drafts that were prepared? The first, second, and third drafts?
This
third
ordinance,
drafts?
yeah, I mean, this ordinance was back and forth for 8 or 9 months. And this final version contains all the drafts, or all the changes from all the updates from all the different contracts, and when those are implemented and put into place. This is the final version that contains everything. When we combined the two ordinances, we updated everything, and this contains all those updates.
That makes absolutely no sense. I'm back to why was this section 6?
Where did this section 6 come from?
Because this section follows the section 6, or follows the vacation leave as amended or as included in the newest ASME contract.
How many parts of this are different? Other than
On
what-
section 6?
Yeah.
She's got A, B, C, and D.
We're gonna have to go back to the colored paragraph so I can see that.
Well, on ordinance 13-2020, which that's the typical section 6 that has always appeared in the manpower ordinance for non-union employees, never was there listing of hours. And it says upon completion of 1 year, you get 10 days. This section 6 says over 1 year, you get 10 days. I suppose it's, a play on words, if you will. Let's see, number B, there wasn't a B in the other section 6, nor was there a C, nor was there a D. I guess that's where you can sit and read what B, C, and D say.
And those follow what's in the ASME contract, so that the non-union employees are being treated the same as the union employees.
Is it possible that the first couple of drafts were prepared inaccurately? And that this one is the better of all that?
I don't know at any time in reading the minutes and listening to the audio recording, was the law director ever asked to do the legislation with the
New bargaining
Yeah.
contract.
I know on July 23rd, it said during its meeting on July 9th, the committee requested that the law director draw up draft legislation repealing and replacing the existing manpower ordinances to state that the non-union employees listed in the ordinances would receive the same percentage wage raises agreed to in the latest ASME contract.
So yeah, that's the thing.
And that day, well, previously Ratliff said he could do it. Then on July 23rd, he said it's not possible to write the legislation to have the wage raises of the non-union employees automatically mirror those of the union employees. It goes on to say that Ratliff provided a draft combining the existing employee and supervisor manpower ordinances. Since several supervisor positions have been eliminated, with those positions assumed by the service safety director. Other changes to the existing ordinances that were incorporated in ordinances number 13/2020 and 14/2020, which failed to pass on June 2nd, 2020, were also included in the draft. So we took ordinance 14, we took ordinance 13, and according to the committee's request, we pulled them together. At no time in 14 and at no time in 16 did this section 6 appear. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe somebody hacked a computer or something.
Question?
Well, were these items mentioned in other sections and now they've been eliminated from them? Is that what you're noticing?
Well, I mean, this section 6 says all full-time members of the bargaining unit. This has nothing to do with the bargaining unit. The original section 6, which again has appeared in the manpower ordinances forever, I should know, I typed, it's always all full-time employees not covered by union contracts.
Okay, so this section 6 needs to be eliminated.
Well, I mean, this section
The
6.
first sentence of section 6, she is correct. It should say all full-time employees not covered by the collective bargaining agreement. It should say that. Then the rest of it is just comporting with what's in the current ASME contract.
So then
So what will we be losing out of the old section 6?
Nothing, you're gaining additional verbiage about how it's applied and how it's calculated.
But we didn't vote on any of this.
No, you voted on all this. This was all, this was in the
We
ordinance.
didn't talk about hours and all that, all these additions, did we?
They voted on a finalized
You
copy, but not the
voted
changes
on
made
it, but
to
there was no
There's no discussion to
discussion.
make these changes.
And there is verbiage in the original section 6 that does not appear in this bargaining union section 6. Such as, vacation periods, must be scheduled at times mutually agreeable to the employees and their respective supervisors.
Which should be there.
I don't see that in my quick reading here. I'm just pointing it out, I mean, you know.
I thought we'd get in trouble for this kind of stuff.
Do
I
we?
know we do.
I mean, that's where I've always, and I mean, violation of Open Meetings Act, when you have a meeting, you are to discuss in an open meeting the changes you're going to make. We have legislation that's been prepared with information that was not discussed or approved in an open meeting to the public. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, committee, what do you need, what do you want to do?
Well, we have to,
That committee, please, Bruce?
Well,
Kevin?
I yield the floor to her, you know, she's a part of this group.
we have to make sure the paperwork's correct. That's all I was gonna say. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
part of this, changing the language to the contracts was probably partially and I don't know what was, discussed and whatever in all the committees. But it was partially to make it consistent for the payroll clerk for across the board. to handle, vacations, accrued vacations, all that kind of stuff, so that everything was consistent. So I think that was the goal of all of this. Now, I'm not saying what's right or wrong, or whether this was discussed to put in, because I haven't been at all those meetings, but, and I'm just saying that this is why it occurred. It's not, I mean, I guess it's splitting hairs on some of this, but it probably should have been discussed that this is what was happening.
There's no probably about it, it's a violation of the Open Meetings Act.
Yeah, we didn't talk about it, but we're gonna vote on it.
Kevin?
I'm gonna start by pointing the finger at myself. Shame on all of us, me included, that we voted on it and didn't read through it as well as we should have, And I'm just as guilty. Glanced it over, it looked good, we voted on because we had faith in what we discussed was what was in there. That didn't happen. I think what this committee needs to do right now is, unfortunately, we're gonna be spending a few more hours together. I think we need to sit down around the table with all the different versions and go through it and put this back together the way that it's supposed to be, that we all agree on, and then vote on it again.
With colors.
Well, the next,
With whatever the heck it takes.
It don't matter what.
And if there's things that the administration feels that need a change in there, I personally think we should have had that highlighted to us, Again, shame on us. We're the ones that voted on it. We missed it.
I agree.
before we cut the discussion off, can we just finish the last couple sections?
Section 8. We'll go to page 7 of 14. I'll call it a paragraph that starts with all employees with more than 480 hours. Let's see, all of the verbiage that appears starting with all employees and down to on January 1, 2017, all of that verbiage appeared in ordinance number 14, 2020, which dealt with the service safety director and the engineer positions. That verbiage never appeared in the manpower ordinance for the non-union employees. If you look at the sentence that starts there in that section, it says employees with more than 480 hours accrued on January 1, 2017, upon separation from the city of Bucyrus, regardless of when separation occurs, will be eligible to sell back accrued hours up to the level of their cap imposed on January 1, 2017. If you go to page 8 of 14, that very same verbiage starts 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth line down. Employees with more, it's a duplicate. It's a repetitive recitation of the last sentence that I just read. That verbiage, that particular paragraph, always has been in previous manpower legislation.
But now we're putting it in twice.
Well, you're putting in my opinion, language from the union, if you will, and that includes verbiage that's already in here in the other section. I mean, it's a duplication, yeah. I do not understand why that paragraph is even in there. To me, it shouldn't be in there. Because again, according to minutes and audio recording, that was never discussed. And the main thing is, there's a duplication. It says the same thing, 2 different paragraphs.
And it's word for word.
Yep.
And the
Want to
next?
go on to the next one?
Yes, please.
Section
Please.
11. On the ordinance 25,
Page 914.
Yes, yes, 914. It says, effective upon implementation of insurance coverage as a result of the labor union negotiations with the ASME union, all non-safety forces employees, with the IAFF for the fire chief and with the FOP for the police chief. That verbiage never appeared in any of the old manpower ordinances or even in the draft 1, 2, and 3 that have been done. There is a paragraph that has always appeared in section 11, which does not appear in section 11 in ordinance 25. And I guess, do we still have a health insurance committee?
I never heard of such a thing. Mr.
Hmm?
Ross?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know how long it's been since they met, but yes, there is still
Okay,
health insurance.
and that whole paragraph on section 11 in the previous draft and previous approved manpower ordinances does not appear in 25-2020, and that paragraph says, it is agreed that a joint labor management health insurance committee shall be established and will be authorized to review and recommend. I mean, that whole paragraph is missing. Also, where it talks about effective upon implementation of insurance coverage as a result of the committee prepared specifications. But the new 25-20 says effective upon implementation of the labor union negotiations.
Well, that's gotta be stricken from the thing when it's talking about labor and the union. Because it's non-union we're talking.
And if we still do have our insurance committee, and I don't have it highlighted, oh, I want to look at the right section. Section 11, 12020.
where are you seeing that, the labor union sentence at? I can't find it in here.
Page 9 of 14, and 25-120, section 11.
Very
And
last
five.
paragraph,
Yeah.
second line.
Second sentence, or second line.
Because the next page does mention the insurance for the registered.
Yeah, but that language in 11, and again, 11 is changed so that it complies with the ASME program. And what those first couple lines are saying is that because of the insurance changes effective with labor unions for ASME, for all the non-ASME employees, for IAF for the fire chief, and for FOP with the police chief, because all the non-union, non-ASME employees follow the ASME contract. Fire chief follows the fire contract, and the police chief follows the FOP contract. So that's what that language is saying, that those individuals, their insurance follows the insurance that's set by those contract. And the changes that are in 11 are changes that, again, follow what's in those contracts.
Why would you say that? That it follows those contracts?
Well, I mean,
Because that's what we've always done, is the non-union employees, their benefits follow the union contracts. Police chief follows
So the
his. and-
employees that cannot be in a union because of their specifics of the job.
The chiefs.
Right, and the chiefs and things, their benefits generally follows the unions. Now, you can make their benefits lesser, and we talked to, that's why this was pending for 8 or 9 months, because we talked about whether or not to give them raises. Or you can make them greater. But the history is that we try to follow the contract.
I'm sorry, Vicki, go ahead.
No, that's,
That's you.
does the AFSCME union and IAFF and the FOP, do they have an insurance committee?
We have one insurance committee.
They each have a representative that sat on that board or on that committee. That's how it was.
That sat on,
On the insurance.
okay,
Yeah.
I got,
Yeah.
Yeah, you just have one big one.
There were representatives from each union and administrative, or
Okay.
non-union on that committee.
that's.
All right. Committee? Bruce? Jim?
What are you asking?
We've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, you're damn right they do.
When do you wanna get together on
Hey,
that?
Rob, did you type this up?
Yeah, yes.
Is it on a laptop or?
Yeah, we have it.
Well, I was just gonna say, when you guys are talking about it, maybe if you have the laptop sitting here so that you could,
Oh, yeah, we can,
Oh.
Todd's got the word version of it.
Somewhere I thought I read where half, if you had some sick time to get rid of,
you could sell it.
you could sell it.
It does say that in there.
That here.
And that was a half for what, non-union? Or union? Half is for union and then 1/4 or something is for non-union. I thought I'd seen two sections dealing with the union and also with the non-union in here. It was contradictory, I thought. But I don't remember where I read it at.
Well, you may see things in here, that look contradictory because we have date breaks in how sick leave is paid out. Employees that started after a certain date, employees that have caps at a certain date. When 7, 8 years ago, whatever it was, we had unlimited accruals, we had high caps, and so over a number of contracts, we've been ratcheting those things down. And so there are some, in certain places, there may be some language that looks contradictory because it's based on that, yeah, when you started, what hours you had on certain dates, based on when the contracts went into effect.
Bruce,
So there are some of those things.
I found what you're talking about. If you look on ordinance 25-2020, page 5 of 14, this is under section 6. Again, the section 6 that
Yeah, 2/3.
wasn't the normal section 6. Under D, it says, an employee shall have the option of selling back to the city his or her accrued vacation if and only if he/she has used 2/3 of the accrued vacation in the calendar year preceding da-da-da-da-da. If you go to page 6 of 14, and you go to section 7, it says that the employee shall have the option of selling back to the city their accrued vacation if and only if they have used 1/2.
Yeah,
So you're contradictory here. One place you're saying 2/3, and the other you're saying 1/2.
Yeah, paragraph 7 should come out to keep it with it.
So one's gotta be eliminated.
Yeah, because that language then, when we did the ASPE contract, that language left from being in a separate section to all being part of the vacation section. Yeah. So 7 could definitely come out, I think.
Section 7's gotta be removed. Right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, we did a lot of combining and cleaning up in the ASPE contract.
Okay. We need to decide how we're gonna do this to change these. Committee?
unfortunately, I think we're gonna have to sit down and read through the whole thing again, line by line. And I think we need to set a meeting just for that.
Yeah.
And when you want to sit down.
Week from tonight?
2 weeks.
I'd rather do it on a week we don't have a council meeting.
Tomorrow.
Mr. Chair, just a reminder, I don't know, I've not heard any dates yet, but it's that time of the year when finance is gonna start meeting on the budget. And
Yeah.
I was told that they wanted to do, this is administration, but they wanted to have a meeting next week, but I have not heard anything specific. But budget meetings for finance are coming up, and those usually are separate meetings.
Yep.
What day next week?
Tuesday?
I can do Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, it doesn't matter to me.
Can I ask you a question? Since I'm not on this committee, I don't gotta be here. But, because I know it's gonna be drawn out, but, I'd rather be.
I'd rather have you be here
It's a
too.
public meeting, anybody can be here.
I'm gonna try to make it there.
Are you available next Tuesday, Vicki?
Yeah, that sounds fine. What is the date on that?
13th.
13.
And could I ask?
It'll have to be at least 5:30. It can't be at least.
A copy?
I want a copy of all 5 drafts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say, so you could see. what
We're
changed.
we need a big table.
Right there.
And some highlighters.
5:30?
Whole bunch of highlighters and different.
Okay, hello? 5:30, correct?
I'm fine with that, yeah.
That's it.
13th.
Bruce?
Yes.
Okay. 5:30, the 13th. That good for you, Vicki?
Yes.
Is that Tuesday?
Yeah.
At least we're not kicking it down the road again.
Right.
That's what that would be.
Okay, with that, I will adjourn.
I have just one other thing, please. While I was getting prepared for tonight, I noticed that the April the 9th, 2020 Finance Committee minutes, there's an error. Number 6, where it's talking about employee and supervisor manpowers. It says the committee decided to schedule a special finance committee meeting. Now, this meeting that the minutes are for are Thursday, April the 9th. And the minutes state the committee decided to schedule a special finance committee meeting for 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, April the 9th. Then it goes on to say, council members decided to schedule a special council meeting at 7:00 p.m. on Thursday, April the 9th. That really should state Tuesday, April the 14th. And that was the big meeting where you did a lot of changes to the manpower ordinance. And I'm just thinking, I'm reading this and I'm like, Thursday, April the 9th, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. And again, just for clarification, if someone, goes back and looks at this, it should have, the right date on it, dates. So,
Can we amend minutes that have already been approved?
You
From
could-
April.
Sure we can.
You have a resolution and you amend the minutes for Scrivener's errors.
Well, is there a way to put a note, attach a note to something? Yeah, as
well,
part
I
of the
think I heard
notes.
Todd say, what was it, the Scrivener error, or
Yeah.
however you refer to that. I personally, I don't have a problem with that. But I think the minutes themselves, there needs to be something on your hard copy that you maintain in your office or whatever. So if someone makes a public records request and they get a copy of this, then there's that notation on there that, I don't know.
I have a question. Is there a way to make that notation as part of the minutes now that would put kind of a stamp on that? for, hey, we pulled up the information from April 14th meeting, which was previously marked for the wrong date of April 9th. Does that cover all of that? Because you are gonna need those minutes pulled up while you guys go over this on next Tuesday, just saying, if that's where most of it was
Yeah,
covered.
sounds good to me.
Okay. Anything else?
And
So
then
Bruce, you're
again,
making a
you can
motion?
turn
I
around and
make
put
that motion
notation
for
on
what
That's
Aaron
nice.
just said.
You know he's tired now, he's gonna make that motion for what Aaron just said.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed.
I agree too.
I will adjourn finance
It's the easiest way to do it.
Sure.
at 8:36.
It's only an hour, already an hour. All right, we'll call health and safety to order at 8:36. Item 1 is a traffic control map for Concord Drive. In front of you, you've got draft ordinance. It basically states that this was all done during the Ross administration on November 4th of 2005, but it wasn't finalized, and we're going to accept it and finalize it. Did I summarize that pretty well, Rob?
Yeah, and this is draft, this is just a draft of what you're requesting. I know there's a couple typos in it that we need to do, but this is just for your review as to what it's proposed to look like. You got, you get some dates changed and change the resolve to ordained. But I tried to just bang out something real quick so you can kind of see what the plan was here, what the verbiage was as to what we're gonna be doing.
So what dates are wrong?
Down at the bottom, it's just 2019. I just used an old form.
Oh, I see.
And the, it says be it resolved, it should say be it ordained. But the substance was just, what was important, so I was just trying to get something to you.
Now, we do not have to make do we have to make this?
No, you're making a legislation request for legislation to this effect.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
All right, I have a motion requesting legislation. Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Legislation has been requested. All right. Traffic Commission, the topic of 90-day trials. I know that one of the things that was mentioned maybe the other night was the actual, and I'm gonna go all the way to the other end of the spectrum here, is disbanding the Traffic Commission and putting it all into health and safety, which is what the city of Galion does, for instance. They've got, their council takes care of a lot. I don't know if that's the whole route we wanna go, or if we just wanna find a way that the current Traffic Commission, reports to us. What are your thoughts, committee?
I think it'd be better continuity. It seems like there's a big lag time between the time they talk about it and then 6 months later we learn something and the minutes are so far behind. We just found out the minutes from June.
Right.
Gee whiz.
I have a question. Things on the committee. Would there be a way to just say, hey, can we have this committee meet with Health and Safety Committee so that we have their input?
So, one of the things that came up, because I have attended all but one of the Traffic Commission meetings in the past year and a half, and I missed the most recent one that they scheduled, like the day before. They added the street superintendent to that. I honestly think there should be a member of council who sits on that commission. That's part of why I was going, was to try to, so that when we have stuff brought to council, that I even knew what in the world they were talking about. But to further that point, I think too, as members of council, we all should be privy to see their draft minutes before they're even approved, so we know what in the world's going on, within a couple of days of them having a meeting. So I don't know where your heads are at, whether you wanna.
I'm fine totally disbanding it. Cause all it does is do 90-day trials. That's basically all it does. It's just a couple people sitting around thinking, how can we change all the signs in town? Basically,
Well, you're not exactly right though, because I've sat in all these meetings, and it truly is purposeful conversation between police and fire, and, they talk about how the snow plows can get around certain things, garbage trucks, yada, 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 so there is a very purposeful conversation that goes on. Everything that they do has reason. There's been people that have come to whether they sent a letter or came in person and asked stuff, and some of it was just, somebody came and asked to have all the stop signs in town removed and all yield signs put up. So I mean, people ask some really different things.
Of all the meetings you're at, how often was the media there?
Never.
That's the problem.
But we can't control when they do and don't show up.
I mean, they're only here half the time in our regular meetings.
Lisa.
I feel that one of those two things probably needs to happen, because when they put up a 90-day trial and they take a 90-day trial down, no one contacts the traffic commission throwing a fit, they contact council.
Right.
And I know, I've heard, you've heard, I know you've heard. I feel like if I'm gonna be held responsible for something, if like somebody's gonna come at me and I need to answer, I need to know. I didn't even, you saw the minutes, they were from
June 8th.
June. Okay, well, that's 5-6 months ago.
Yeah,
The trial's
we
been
just know,
had,
okay.
done, over, and then I've been yelled at, and now I got the minutes.
Rob, can we as a council decide who is and who is not on the traffic commission?
Yeah, you said it by ordinance and that.
Because they added, without council's approval, they added the street superintendent, which I don't have any issue with at all, but that happened outside of the council's purview. My belief, for what it's worth, is maybe I'll volunteer now, put the health and safety chair on the traffic commission, then whenever we have the next health and safety meeting after whatever they have on, I'll report back exactly everything that happened.
Because.
If we do it that route.
Or they need to report here, like, here's your traffic commission report, and it's 6 months old. If they're gonna put up new trial signs, people need to know beforehand.
Well,
That's a trial.
any 90-day trial that's established, we as members of council, as well as the news media, should have a news release within 24 hours.
Yeah, did you get one?
No.
Okay,
No.
me neither.
Neither
And then
did
when
I.
they're gonna take it down, there's no news release, and then people are A, happy, or B, pissed.
Or
Yeah.
both.
One of the, or both, right,
Well, when they took the
caught off
stoplights
guard.
out down by the Crazy Fox in the next
Yeah,
block,
I was livid.
they ended the 90-day trial early because they were so in favor of it. It was only like a 20-day trial. So, I mean, Bruce.
And part of that, I don't know if they even considered what it does to the businesses when you go from a traffic signal to a stop sign. Because when you go to a stop sign, then you have to eliminate up to 25 feet away from that stop sign. So now what they've done is they've eliminated a parking spot on the south side of West Mansfield Street. They've eliminated a parking spot on Poplar Street because you got to be 25 feet away from that stop sign. I mean, it's like they're eliminating parking spots by putting in stop signs.
Kurt.
I don't even see in here where they're even authorized to do a 90-day trial in this chapter 307. Anywhere.
Well, I know I'm not on this committee, but if they're gonna put trial signs up, there should be some type of sign or some special.
I would agree.
It says
me
this is
notice.
a 90-day trial.
This
Because
is
there's
not
people
permanent
like my
presently.
parents. My parents aren't really on the internet. They aren't,
Well,
I mean, there's.
It's kind of
older
like what we did
people.
with the signs that we put in the yards for zoning.
Yes.
I think there
Yeah.
could be an informational sign placed up in that area, say this is a 90-day trial. Please
Yes.
call your ward
Council
Ward
worker.
4
At the bottom of
council
the
rep.
sign. Just have a specific sign that they're putting
Yeah.
up at the bottom of the sign that's connected to the stop
Yeah.
sign.
I will say we've gotten great feedback on our zoning signs.
Yes,
So we've
and I
got-
think we would.
I
this
do
too.
like the zoning signs, by the way.
So what do we want to do with this? Do we want to keep the traffic commission and add ourselves to it and be
I
more
think
informed
that-
for a start?
Yeah, I don't think you need to disband them.
We still need the fire department.
Because you still need their.
Fire
Fire
department
police
needs
are
to
on
be a part of it.
Yeah.
Yep, fire and police are on it. Service garage is on it. The mayor, the service director.
And no trials without having council's approval of the trials.
Well, or at least
At
a list.
least
I think
As
if
long as
we're made
we're-
aware of it within, I
No,
think
yeah,
any
yeah.
90-day trial, we need to be made aware within 24 hours of the meeting by email.
Yeah.
Yeah, before it's implemented, so that we're not getting calls and we don't know what in the world we're fielding calls about.
Yeah.
I think in
What do you
90
mean
days.
there's a stop sign? I have no clue what you're talking about. Thanks, and I look stupid.
Yeah.
I think the implementation of a 90-day trial is good,
Yeah.
as long as we're informed and we have the information out there
Or
at
people
the
to know.
change.
Hey, am I gonna like this or am I not? So that people know,
As long as the
maybe
public
it'll
is
be here,
informed and
maybe it
we're
won't.
informed.
All right, so we want to add the health and safety chair as a voting member
I believe so.
of the health and safety committee, and we want of the traffic commission, we want the traffic commission to notify all council members or all elected officials and the news media within 24 hours of any meeting, any new 90-day trials that are going to take effect, or any changes that they're doing.
That has to be prior to the change.
And we need to be notified prior to the implementation of said change.
I'll make that a motion.
Is that regular or emergency?
Just make an emergency, that's all.
All right, I have a motion for emergency legislation. Do I hear a second? I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Same. All right, motion carries by voice vote. Unless there's any public comment,
I have a question.
Sure.
I do have a question. Okay, when it comes to the police and the cameras, do we get to make anything saying, hey, you've got to keep those cameras on, there's no playing with the volume or turning them on and off, because that's to protect the people as much as it is the officer?
I'll defer either to.
They have a body cam policy. They do turn the cameras on and off. Well, because there are also times when they cannot or should not be recording. There.
But
I,
it's not always legal the way it's done, just saying, I mean, because there's some other things that, so shouldn't there be a way that we make a rule stating, no, you don't turn off? Yes, there's things that don't get released, but the body cam footage isn't covering, I mean, there's things that are only protecting people who are doing things that aren't quite right as well.
sure.
It doesn't make our police officers look good, and it doesn't make our city look good.
There are times and reasons though when they don't record, whether it's released or not, it can be required to be disclosed as part of discovery if they were meeting, for example, with a confidential informant or
So what about when
a
they're
child
just
victim.
picking somebody up and they decide to say something to them, and suddenly the volume gets turned down and you watch the hand come up, but then it comes back on for other things?
I think
Well, that can be an issue, but what I can
It
do
is
is
an
I can ask the chief to come in and kind of give you their body cam policy and go over that with you and tell you what their practices and procedures
I
are.
was told that the city could make an ordinance to make sure that it's all done, and then, things that are not to be released, like
Well,
confidential informant information, that is kept in the department
but
and is a separate entity.
if it exists, it may not be public record, but it may be discoverable whether your ordinance says that I don't turn it over to opposing counsel or not. Those are a different set of rules. We can't have a local ordinance that overrules
Is there a way to look
discovery
into that?
rules or something, or anything like that. But we can certainly, and I defer to the police chief and let him tell you what their body cam policy is. And they're actually in the process right now of switching over to, I forget the name of it. It's a Lexipol. It's a statewide training system that all the officers are going through continuous and ongoing training. It's all online, and it's an impressive system. So we're really upgrading our training and our access to training and some of those things. But I certainly, invite the chief in to talk about that. But yeah, I mean, we can adopt ordinances that specify certain things, but there are also other things to consider, and I defer to the police chief to kind of have him tell you about that.
Bruce, I'll get you in a second. Aaron, do you want the police chief to come into a committee meeting to do that, or do you want to try to get with them one-on-one?
No, that'd be a good thing to have in a committee meeting, so we could all be
Okay.
informed.
Todd, could you request the police chief to let us know the next time he's available for a health and safety committee meeting, and have him come in?
It's something I've been wondering for a while, especially with everything coming up in bigger cities and the things that I've personally seen here that aren't quite kosher that would bring us all under the heat.
Should Todd request it or should I request it? Because when we requested Jeff Dunn to be here, he ended up not being here.
Well, it's because the administration didn't tell him to come. I was just asking Todd to do that. I don't care between the two of you figure it out, but
I'm here 8 hours a day.
Right.
I see more
kind of
people.
thought it made sense there. Bruce?
Okay, when we had Mr. Castor, Mike Castor here the other night, you know, he had talked to us about, you know, traffic commission and how things are done, and he was telling me and a couple others outside that when the county and when he was on duty, they would actually do, there's actually a study or something that they can do where they measure the distance from a stop sign and the angle of travel, and it probably falls into what Lynn does. And before they would implement anything, they would actually have a basic understanding of what the intersection that they wanted to, you know, modify or alter when it comes to stop signs or traffic signals or whatever. They had to have some groundwork done before they just all of a sudden decide we want to put something somewhere where it's never been before. And so he said he would do this, and he says it can be done by the, you know, police, observations. They do it when they do a traffic accident. They have to, I guess, what do you call it, triangulate maybe or something?
And to that point, I know that a lot of times things that do get brought up in traffic commission, they don't vote on them immediately. There's been plenty of times where they've asked the police department, look into this, keep an eye on this, and tell us at our next meeting. So they do some of that now, probably just not as formally as what Mr. Castor was suggesting.
Well, he was saying that then they always had to take it to Mr. Baker, the engineer. And then they would talk about it again and say, hey, you know, this is what we found, this is what maybe we're proposing, let's take it in front of another person that's actually deals with, you know, the traffic part of it.
Yeah.
It just seems as though it's just getting lost.
If it's a state route, I think ODOT would be willing to do you could have them do a traffic study.
So anything that we want to change on a state route has to get ODOT's approval.
It does?
Mhm.
Inside the city limits, you're in control of all public right-of-ways.
Well, then.
I shut down 98 South back in the 80s. I called them up and told them I was doing it in advance so that they could reassign their detour routes around.
But we changed the speed limits, and then ODOT came in and said, no, that we control this, and so we weren't allowed to change, so that'll.
You are also in, part of that area, the farm was not inside the city limits.
But even out by McDonald's and up by Pickwick, both.
At Kurt's place, I remember I did that in the 80s,
Yeah.
when we put the fire line in.
But the
We
city.
shut the road down.
Within the last few years, the city changed the speed limits.
Melcher
Out of the
Drive.
traffic commission, and the state came back and said no. And the state made them go back to what it was. That's why you see a 45-mile-an-hour speed
But
limit
if it
out
was
of
Mr.
McDonald's.
Knott, you jump in and out of city limits out there too.
Not before McDonald's.
Yeah, the west side's inside the city limit, the east side's outside the city limits on Route 4.
Down by the church.
Yeah, so right down, clear down to the church on the point there. On the
I'm
west side,
saying
that's
right up
inside.
here in front of Trinity.
I
and
know,
all
but
that.
where they changed it would decide.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I know that we were told that the ODOT overruled what the city did and changed it back. I do know that, so.
Wherever the jurisdiction is, but yeah, there's.
Well, the north end from Melcher Drive to the Candle Factory, the east side was Holmes Township.
Yes.
You know what?
And the city changes the signs up there.
And the same thing happened out by Heartland. One
you don't
side of
have
the
the
road
right
was
to
county
change
and
what's
one
not
side was
inside the
city.
city limits.
Yeah. So.
No, and I was often told too, is that when there's a traffic or a speed problem, you know, stop signs aren't made to control speed.
It's illegal to use them to control
Yeah.
speed.
Well, but I mean, it seems as though that's been a practice and,
It's because they use the word safety instead of speed, that's allowed.
Or pedestrian traffic.
So the one,
There was a village or something eastern several years ago that was fined $10,000 because it was proved that they put up stop signs for speed control.
so the stoplights are the same thing.
Yep.
So
You
stop-
put up
stoplight on Hopley-
signals and signs for the traffic control, not speed. Speed is an enforcement issue.
So the stoplights can be used as traffic control.
If there's a higher volume of traffic and it warrants it, there are like 7 or 8 things that warrant a traffic control device. Speed.
So the one on Hopley, it stays red until I pull up there at 3 o'clock in the morning from East Street in one way. And I'm sitting there waiting.
Hopley at where?
East and Lucas.
Hopley, East and Lucas.
That's being changed out and that'll be, we're in the process of designing a whole new intersection there with new traffic control devices. And it could be signalized. They're having a problem with maintenance. The old systems wore out. That was put in back in the 80s. But some of that is, like, I love coming through town with flashlights, you know, when we get out of here tonight, they'll be on flash. But, you know,
All right. Anything else for health and safety? All right, recessed at 8:57.
Planning Committee at 8:57. Approval of minutes. It's approved, I'm asking for a motion for the Thursday, September 17th. As I can see here, there was no adjustments to this, so do I have a motion or any questions? If not, can I have a motion to accept the September 17th minutes?
I'm not under control.
I know.
You look at it.
I'm just asking for the September 17th.
Has to be posted,
everything that you had said, because page 1 of 2, I know that this is where you were in interject. No, it's fine. Yeah. All right. I move that we go ahead and approve September 17th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the special plating committee on October 1st with the amended section after phase 2, phase 3 amendment requested by Vicki Deshawn. Plating committee, Deshawn noted that according to the minutes for the June 4th, 2020 plating committee meeting, Lynn McKeever noted that a hump in the sanitary sewer beginning in phase 1 requires repair, while zoning administrator Landon Hill noted that some issues with the storm sewer also need addressing. That's what's being asked to be amended and added to the minutes.
And I have a comment.
Go ahead.
That is not what I said. I'm asking for these minutes to be done just like, well, like tonight, your service committee minutes, where you state amendment requested on 10/5/20 R. Ratliff. I'm asking for that verbiage to be placed here. Amendment requested by V. DeShawn on amendment requested on 10/5/2020 by V. DeShawn. Cross out the lines that I amended, which at the October 5th meeting, I specifically stated the verbiage that I did not agree with, and I requested that the amendment read as follows, and I read word for word what I wanted the amendment to say, and I'm asking for my verbatim requests to be included in the October 1, 2020 minutes. And would you like me to read that verbatim request again, or what I read on October 5th?
Yes.
You have to, because I don't remember it. I can't, there's no way I can remember that.
Well, you can listen to the audio recording. DeShawn asked why the city is not now responsible for the Kincora infrastructure accepted by resolution number 249, 2001, since in the June 4, 2020 Planning Committee meeting audio recording, Lynn McKeever stated that the hump in the sanitary sewer began in phase 1 and encompassed 5 homes. And this amendment that you have here states that I said that in the minutes. That's not what I said. And you didn't specifically recite the resolution number, which I said, you know, when people are reading these minutes and it just says via legislation, let's be people friendly here. Recite the legislation number. So when they're reading the minutes, it's like, oh, well, I can go look at resolution or ordinance number.
Okay, I'm gonna request that we have this redone and get reapproved at the next meeting, till we have it written as she has stated.
And I have a copy, Todd, if you would like it, so you don't have to listen to the audio recording.
If you want to email it to me or give it to me, I have it, obviously, the recording as well.
So you said what again? It was
Email, you can email.
You can email it to me, that's fine.
I will be happy to do that. Thank you.
So
Thank you.
we'll table the, I think it was October 1st minutes to get them changed. Okay, the one you're probably been waiting for. Okay, Cyrus Codified Ordinance 1157.04, newly annexed areas.
Is this one you sent me? I thought he liked this.
I do.
Okay.
No,
It's
this
been
is,
a long time since I had to go through one of these.
this is just the change that we talked about for newly annexed areas where currently our zoning code requires them to annex in as the RE district. We talked to committee about changing that in various ways, and I think what the committee finally decided upon was that we leave it zoned into RE as kind of the default provision unless something is agreed to, essentially, unless prior to annexation, a specific zoning area is requested by the owner of the property to be annexed and is approved by council as part of the resolution that sets forth the services to be provided. So I think that was pretty much the exact language that you guys had talked about, so we included that, and this is just a draft of what it would look like.
You have questions, Jim? Bruce?
No.
I think that answers pretty much how we wanted to make it. You agree, Bruce?
Yes.
Okay, I need a request for legislation and probably need to make this as an emergency. due to the,
It's, for the one annexation we just did, we're past that already. There are 2 other pieces of annexation that may be forthcoming. It would be beneficial to them, although it's not, it doesn't,
There's something we need to decide.
it'll make the process go faster and smoother if we have this as an emergency. But it won't change anything.
so it's up to you, Jim or Bruce,
Motion,
as,
emergency?
okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. With that, I will end plating at 9:06. Any public participation?
I remember when it used to go until 11 o'clock, so you guys are used to it.
This was included in your packets here.
Okay, without that, I'm asking for a motion to adjourn.
Please.
Can I?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.